I will never, ever, ever in my life, once this thing is over or it normalizes out, I will never, ever say, it's okay, I can do it tomorrow. Fuck that. I'll do it now. What tomorrow? You never know what tomorrow brings anymore. Like, seriously. We all thought we had the luxury of, nah, it's okay, I can do it next year, or I'll do it next month. You can't now. Like, imagine. You can't. There's so many things that you can't do that we left for tomorrow, and yesterday's tomorrow is today, and we're stuck. That's definitely a learning that I'm taking from this pandemic story.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yellow Van Stories, your interview podcast taking you across the globe in a yellow French camper van by the name of Fonzie. I'm your host and driver, Bastian. Every week, I invite creatives from all over the world into the van to explore with them the opportunities hidden within a crisis and, more generally, what life is like in their part of our globe. We've been waiting just for you and kept you a seat by the window side. Also because, technically, there are no others. Fonzie's in first gear already and we are good to go, so buckle up and get comfortable, because today we're going to Thessaloniki and beyond. Here with us in the Yellow Van today is George Donios, an author, musician, radio presenter, photographer, and filmmaker from Thessaloniki in Greece. It's great to have you on the Yellow Van today, George, and with us as well, not to forget, the as always beautiful and lovely Vicky Marcoleva.
Hello everybody, welcome George, thanks for joining us on the
Hi guys, thanks for the invitation and the, I don't know, should I say my ticket for the Yellow Van ride or boarding pass or whatever, but it's great to be on board actually.
It's wonderful to have you on board. It's absolutely wonderful to have you on board, and we'll explore a little more why it's especially wonderful to have you on board today, because just recently we have been on your radio show and you did a bit of an interview. I don't know how you do a bit of an interview.
Quite of a long interview.
But,
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
And it was an absolutely wonderful and memorable experience. And so now what goes around comes around. You're here with us, and we couldn't be happier. So thanks for joining us once again.
No, once again, thanks for the invite.
So before we get lost in all of that, the most important question of all the Yellow Van Stories conversations is, what are you drinking, George?
What am I drinking? I'm actually having a double shot of a Martini Bianco. There's two pretty sizable chunks of ice in there, bit of lemon, and yeah, that's me for the night. And I got a whole bottle in the freezer, so you can ask as many questions as you like.
You come well prepared. This is wonderful.
He was born ready.
He's a pro, of course, and he's also in the radio business, so he knows that stuff like this can just drag on and drag on. We hope it's not going to drag on.
It needs a bit of attention though, because this is kind of like don't drink and drive. It also holds.
That's true.
Don't
but
drink
we're not
and
driving
talk too much. Well, no, but we're talking, so
but figuratively, we're definitely talking. Like metaphorically driving, we're definitely metaphorically driving without any doubt, because we're going to actually visit a whole lot of places today with your help. That's why you're also
I'll
here.
do my best.
So next question. Oh yeah. By the way, before we carry on, we are having ouzo on ice with water, summer Greek drink.
So original. I mean, we couldn't be more original, I have to say.
But you're doing half the job. Do you have mezze there? Do you have something to buy?
No, we're halfway there. Well, you understand there are certain scarcities here.
I can imagine. Poor fellows,
but, yes, we were.
But we got the small glasses, you see.
I love the terminology scarcities. Right? It's as if you're like in the middle of nowhere in the boonies, out in, I don't know, Gobi Desert or something. Yeah, we only have like goat milk, so that's the best we can do. But anyway.
We like drama. So,
of course. I think you invented that stuff, right? I mean, one Greek to another and a German in the middle, that's been there. I think you invented that stuff.
Yes, it's like one of the jokes.
I can smell the crisis already.
Yes, δύο Έλληνες και ένα Γερμανός. Two Greeks and one German.
That sounds like the beginning of a terrible joke in Greek, to be honest.
Yes, it does actually. We're just missing the airplane and the cannibals in the jungle waiting to capture us as we fall.
Very nice.
So I have to say, welcome everybody to our first live podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. And first of all, thank you again from my part, George, for being here with us, because you have a lot of exciting stories to tell and to share, and you have already shared it in so many ways. And I can't wait to hear also what I don't want to give it away. I will give it to you, but
don't spill the beans yet.
Exactly,
don't spill the beans yet.
But I'm really excited for the second part of our conversation, because I've known you for many years, so it's always nice looking back, but it's even nicer looking forward.
Yes, that is true.
So
just to make sure, with the second part of the conversation, you don't mean the second part of this conversation, right? Because otherwise we would have to fast forward now to where it becomes interesting to you. You mean this is the second part of the conversation as opposed to the one we had on George's show, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Just making sure that I don't have to speak a lot faster now than I did before.
No,
you don't. Don't worry about it.
By the way, I just checking, we're live on Facebook as well. That's really working out, because, with me, you're never sure. But with your help, Vicky, we managed to do it. Thanks for all the competence you bring to the table.
Anytime.
So where are you right now, George?
I'm at home. Where am I supposed to be? We have a lockdown. Where could I be actually
Totally.
at the moment, right? So I'm at home. I'm at my studio.
You don't have a lot of choice. I think after 6 o'clock. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, me being a photographer, I can actually roam about with my, let's say, formal license, so to speak. But it's still not the same. So yes, I'm locked up like everybody else at home, and yeah. Martini and Siggy's and good company for the rest of the evening.
All right.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I feel touched, but good company. We can just really return that. And with Uzo, what can possibly go wrong?
Sure. Wow.
If you have to choose anything in that room you're in right now, your home, what is your favorite thing in there?
In this, that's an extremely difficult question.
Yeah, I know. I like
if I had to choose something, hold on, in my entire house or in this specific room, what would I choose?
I would go for the specific room just to make it a little easier on you.
Oh man, it's not easy, I'm telling you. It's because
I know, he does that to all the people. To all the people he does that. He has to
Bastian,
make them choose one thing.
I really don't like you already. Like, seriously, man. I don't like... I'm actually gonna... Okay, so my favorite item in the room right now is a picture.
All right. Tell us more about that picture, please.
It's actually the first picture I ever shot myself. And I think it's my first ever sunset. I shot that on a Zenith, on my grandfather's Zenith, a Russian, actually it was a Soviet camera, right? Which I still have right next to me. I have my grandfather's camera. And it was my first ever sunset at their village where my grandparents used to have their restaurant and their little hostel right in front of the sea. And I'm at the first floor, at the second room of the pension. And I took a shot, and judging from where the sun is, I think it's June. And there's a windsurfer. And I just caught the windsurfer on the reflection of the orange sun on the waters, and that was my first actual shot.
Wow!
And it was on film, and I didn't mess it up. So that was a very wow moment back then. So yeah, I think that's my favorite item. I mean, everything is a very personal item in the room, in the house in general. But I think I would go for that picture. Yeah.
Very nice. And if you, it's all up to you, of course. If you want to share that with the audience later, maybe we can just link to it. But it's on your website, I suppose, isn't it?
That picture, no, it's not.
No. Okay.
No.
Then forget what I said. Moving on.
We will let it be a mystery.
We will let it be a mystery, but I think you had such a wonderful description of it now. I mean,
Yes.
in all flying colors.
I can scan it and we can share it if you'd like.
Maybe you can paint us a diagram to share it. Just a quick sketch of the photo. Maybe you can do that.
I'm horrific. There's a lot of things I'm good at.
I'm not sure it has the same entertainment value, but we can try.
I'm horrible at drawing stuff. I'm horrible. You don't want to see my...
One thing he can't do.
That's why.
I admit. I openly admit I'm horrible at doing stuff with pencils. Like, even sometimes if I write fast enough, not even I can read what I wrote. That was a huge problem at university, where like the lecturer would go blah, 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 the whole time. We're like speeding, like our pencils were on fire. And then I would go home and try and study my own notes, and I was like, what in God's name am I writing here? It was like, so never mind. You don't want to see my sketches. You don't.
I think I have this theory, because I think all photographers are people that just can't paint or draw, and that's why they turn to photography.
You think
so? At
so?
least that's how it worked. That's how it worked with me.
He's lying.
I'll remember that when I first see you live.
I mean, I can't draw to save the life of me.
No, too late now. That was an actual threat, so beware.
There you go.
All right. Just quickly, just as a quick introduction, not an introduction, but a quick introduction actually. What am I saying? Of you, as usual, I would just write a little introduction that I created myself, with your help though, this time as well, because I found some really beautiful quotes of you. So if you are ready, I would just quickly read it out so that everybody knows a little bit more about you.
All right.
So, George is an author, a radio DJ and presenter, a musician, photographer, and filmmaker. Wow, it's definitely hard to read that without taking a breath in between. But above all, he is a traveler, exploring the shared essence that makes us all human. His thirst for the world and its people is hard to quench, and the moments of connection and mutual exchange always leave him wanting more. No wonder, then, that he turned to photography and its scientific promise of turning ethereal visual impressions into lasting memory, making good on one of mankind's oldest dreams. So, and here's what George has to say about this himself. Better than I ever could. So this is quoting you now, of course, so you know what's about to come.
Oh, you went on my site.
Okay, of course I did. Of course I did. What do you think? So you say... Photography was a one-night stand for me. Perhaps something you try just to get a kick of awesomeness right after a breakup rips your world apart. Herberts were soon... Herberts?
So what?
What did I write there?
See, I told you, even when I talk, people can read my stuff. It's impossible, give up.
Well, let's just pretend you typed this out and I didn't, because and it's handwritten.
And
exactly.
I don't know who Herbert is. Okay, I don't know the guy. Don't get me into trouble, no.
I don't know Herbert either, so I don't know how Herbert slipped in there. Anyway, so let's move along again. So Herbert, whoever you are, he was soon replaced by...
Get out of my text, Herbert.
By shutter clicks, and as life would have it, what was meant as a fleeting encounter turned into love at first sight. We really have to figure out who Herbert is. That sounds like a really interesting
Let's
story.
leave it to the audience.
Yes.
So that they also do something.
So, from street photography in Barcelona, to festivals in Asia, to voluntary humanitarian missions in Africa, which we will talk about as well, my lenses have been my eyes and my camera my best travel companion ever since. I've never considered myself much of an artist. Some people like fishing, others love hunting, and I belong to the group of folks who are dazzled, inspired, and driven by photography's ability to change the world. To stop age at 20, to keep a smile resonant and beautiful forever, to preserve a feeling or an emotion until it's thawed and relived once more by the warmth of a familiar gaze, to inspire travel, induce exploration, and shape public opinion. That's wonderful stuff, really, I have to say. That's really very, very inspiring. George has written a book about his travel experiences called Stories from the Road, in which he recounts impressions from all parts of the world. Unfortunately, this book is only available in Greece so far.
So far.
And in Greek so far. Exactly, working on it, right?
No, hold on. It's not only available in Greece.
If you need a good translator, don't turn to me, but maybe Vicky could help with that as well.
I'm not getting involved with
All
this
right.
man's travels.
Okay.
It's complicated. You
Fine.
can't follow that with any translation, but I would definitely recommend the book. And I think we will leave a post on the comments.
Yes, absolutely. We will link to that.
Yes, it's a very special thing. It's one of I think his latest creation. So it will be very interesting to get into the world of George's travels. It's a really exciting ride.
Yes, absolutely. I can't
hope
say
you
that
don't
I
have to
have
get
read
up
it myself
early.
because
I hope you don't have to
me
get up
reading
early for
Greek.
work tomorrow, huh?
No,
Okay.
no,
I'm
this
just
is work.
I'm
What are
just
you
saying.
talking about? This is work. I am
All right.
working right now. Yes, this is it.
Okay.
Usually I sleep through the entire week until I have an interview. That's pretty much it. Vicky and I have recently been invited to his weekly radio show, Off the Beaten Track. And the music he played on air was a celebration of diverse cultural origins, taking us with him off the beaten track, putting us in touch with the abundance of human creation. It painted the picture of a man free of boundaries or preconceptions, of a man believing in the beauty of all humanity. What better guest for a yellow camper van traveling the world? We feel therefore incredibly privileged to have you on board on Fonzie today, George. Welcome to the Yellow Van.
Well, thank you guys, and thank you, Fonzie, for having me on board. And we'll go wherever the road takes us tonight, I guess.
Yes, exactly. So let's start where we always start, basically. What's it like in Greece right now? What's the current situation at the moment?
Okay, next question.
Okay,
So
we can work
no,
with this.
Hold on. No, we're not going to work with this. The current situation in Greece, there's a lot of social unrest at the moment in the country. There's been, it's another country in the world, going through this COVID-19 pandemic. We are in lockdown, but things are kind of spiraling out of control lately because of a lot of social unrest issues and challenges we've been having in the country. Most of them are focusing around police brutality issues we've been faced up with. So people spend a lot of time being out in the streets, especially during the last week. There's a lot of stuff that's been happening that has shaken us up sincerely as a society and as a nation. And people are basically trying to make their voices heard and, make our daily living just a bit more tolerable than what it is today. So it's been an interesting month.
Yes.
All right.
I can quite honestly say it's been an interesting month. Quite honestly, with you. Other than that, on other news, as they say, the sun is shining, weather's great, it's Greece after all. Beautiful country, beautiful place,
No,
yada,
that's
yada,
exactly
yada.
it. But also, Greece
But-
has one of the strictest lockdowns in Europe.
It is.
So
It's quite intense, actually.
and very prolonged, and it's a balance of things. So yes, for sure, I was also there until the end of February, but now it's starting to really take a bit of a more, let's say, open form, because people were feeling depressed and I think also frightened a lot all throughout the year. But now it is now coming out into the form of protests, of claims. So it is an interesting time again in our country. What
true.
can I say?
It just follows the laws of physics. Like everything has a breaking point, and I believe that we've been pushed to our very limits of endurance in how much stuff we can take. And it's kind of like, guys, just chill a bit, right? No more. Just let us breathe a bit. That's kind of like the situation at the moment.
Yes, it is exactly this feeling of suffocation. I absolutely agree.
Actually, that's an excellent choice of word, Vicky. It's suffocation. That's how it feels.
Yes, suffocating, all this thing. It's yes, especially with regards to the children and how their reality is now in our country. There are kids who go to school and their idea of school is people wearing masks and
Correct.
all these experiences that we will come to find in the next years. But still, there are opportunities even in situations like this, and the fact that people are going on the street, I believe it's important, because
of course
you
it's
understand.
important.
Yes, you take part in how society works, and that's
Correct.
exactly. Of course, taking into consideration all the measures, to keep a distance as much as possible. Of course, to wear your mask, that goes without saying, but also not be dormant. And I think that's I think also that's one essential part of your life, that you don't want to be dormant. So I will take it now from the Greek pandemic and everything, and the German pandemic, to Basti, and to you, to take us to a little let's say a different place for a little while.
For a little while,
please.
yes. But it's also always interesting, for me, to find out what it looks like in other parts of the world right now, because it is something we share. We share it in different ways depending on where we are. We have different realities, but it is nonetheless a reality that also is a shared one at the moment.
Yes,
but this is also something that we will get back into maybe a little bit later, after we also explore some of your plans. First of all, the plans that you have for the near future. And Vicky and I have been talking about it before we find out about your plans for the near future. It would also be nice to know a little more about your personal history and backstory, and why this makes so much sense for you, and why you feel so passionate about what is going to happen. So in talking to you lately, you have always told me that you're only 7 years old. Right, basically. This is something that has very much stuck with me. Can you explain and share with us why you say that? What happened 7 years ago, and where were you 7 years ago?
Okay, that's actually it is a bit of a long story, but yes.
We got time. You got a frozen bottle of martini, and we have a bottle of ouzo, so no stress.
Why am I 7 years old? Well, taking you a few years back, biologically, like my birth age, for example, is I'm going to be 42 on 28th of April. But the version of me that's going to turn 42 on this April 28th has nothing to do with the version of George that used to be out there in the past. It's been a long road. And actually, that has been the longest trip, and I'm still going through this trip as we speak, and I will be going through this trip throughout my entire life. And it's a trip of adventure, and it's a trip of discovery, and it's a trip where I like leaving myself open to new ideas along the way. So it's definitely an evolving one. I guess probably roughly 7 years ago is where things crystallized within me of what I wanted to do with my life and how I wanted to be with my life. And I started looking for the ways of making that change happen. Because it's not like you wake up one fine morning and you say, okay, I'm going to change my life at a snap of a finger, and you go and magic happens and everything is new. It doesn't work this way. What did happen a few years ago was that I did wake up and I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, you know what? Today is going to be the first day of my new life. That did not mean that my life all of a sudden magically disappeared and reappeared around me in the new improved form that I wanted it to be. But at least that was the day that I actually took the decision of saying, hey, no more, some things need to change. Where do I start with this?
What happened for you to realize that things had to change?
Well,
where were you at the time? Can you just describe
the freak out moment was in Singapore, right? So I was in Singapore. I was leading and living a completely different life to the one I actually live today. So
can you describe that life a little bit to us? What happened? Where were you 7 years ago?
Imagine, like, okay, taking you a few years back, I studied mechanical engineering, okay? So I was in Scotland, Herberts University, that's what I did my mechanical engineering studies, that's when I did my Master of Science. And then I followed the path through life that was not kind of like me making choices, but I was kind of like drifting in the wind as things were coming by. And I ended up doing a career of a corporate person, and I was actually having a very successful corporate career. So I was switching from one position to the next, from one company to the next. I was moving from one country to the next, and it was a constantly, let's say, ascending route that I had through all the different jobs and positions I was taking on. So I started from Greece. I went to New York, from New York back to Greece, from Greece to Barcelona, from Barcelona to Singapore. And it was kind of like a crazy ride of becoming a corporate person, surviving in a corporate environment. And the problem was, and it was always there, that I had to force myself into two different versions of me. So I had to be the corporate side of George, okay? And then I had to somehow, let's say, save or maintain or keep my actual George self for me, like unaffected, uninterrupted by whatever corporate life meant. The problem started appearing when, you go higher up in the ranks of hierarchy in a company, and when that's a huge company, with a global footprint, you start losing your ability to maintain control over what you do and what you don't do. I started having moral and ethical issues about the choices I was called upon making every single day, when I was like typing like a maniac on Excel spreadsheets, being on WebEx call like 8 times a day, working crazy hours, being on a plane pretty much 3 out of 4 weeks of a month. I was traveling somewhere to solve out, whatever problems were there. There reached the point that I realized that I could no longer maintain those rhythms of life. I'll never forget, for example, the day I realized what the boxes in my Excel spreadsheet actually translated to, because I was doing procurement. And mind you, procurement had nothing to do with my studies, right? I ended up there because I was very good at talking my way through situations. And for example, I'm horrible at writing, and I'm horrible at drawing, and I'm horrible at sketching. But one very strong point I have is problem-solving techniques. I'm really good at solving problems. So you can give me a bucket that's boiling crap in there and bubbling, like really bad stuff, and I will find my way and work through that. And that's what actually pushed me through the steps of hierarchy in different companies I was working for. Anyway, so I was called upon doing...
That's a great life skill, by the way.
Yeah, I know. But it depends on... It's a great life skill to have, but you have to know which direction you concentrate all those efforts and skills of yours. Because sometimes...
Yeah, what to do with it. What to do with it. Exactly.
So let's say, for example... And that was about a year and a half before I actually resigned and dropped out of it all. One of the targets I was given, so I had a portfolio, say X millions of dollars per year you have to manage. And then out of those X millions of dollars, you need to create savings for the company. Like that's what companies do. You put forward a budget, you decide what's going to be your running cost, you're going to decide on your ROIs, your operating costs, whatever, and then you have to bring savings. And savings usually come to you in the form of a spreadsheet full of targets, and you say you gotta save that much money in Singapore, and that much money in Mongolia or China or whatever. And you have to find different projects for that. So one of the projects we were doing had to do with headcount reduction. And I just went, okay, X plus Y minus Z divide by whatever, and I need to reduce my headcount by I don't know how many people. And I just clicked, entered, put out the spreadsheet, made my presentation, said that's how we solve the problems, and that's how we hit the targets for this year. And I just, gave work to the different country managers and say, guys, go and execute. Me being myself, of course, and saying I was always walking on a very thin line between. I was never, let's say, on any side in the company, because they're like the teams, the Cosa Nostras. There's the blue Cosa Nostra, the grey Cosa Nostra, the green Cosa Nostra. There's Cosa Nostras in the company.
Totally.
It's kind of like, that's how it works.
Another better
It's
word
Cosa
for it.
Nostras.
Absolutely.
And I was...
everywhere, in every kind of organization.
So
it's
I had
Cosa
successfully managed to find that very, very thin borderline in between all the Cosa Nostras that I would operate. I didn't belong anywhere. I wasn't part of any of the Cosa Nostras. Like when my time was up, I would just disappear. I didn't want to mingle with those people. I didn't want to have anything to do with them. And I had very good, let's say, business and on a personal level, relationships with a lot of people on the ground, on the field. So one day, like a few days after I basically launched my savings strategy, I got a phone call. And this guy actually said, "Hey, George, what's up? Whatever." And I'm like, he says, "I know already what you're going to do. I know you're going to reduce headcount in X territory, in X country. So what I'm asking of you," because he already knew the lists of the names that were going to be laid off, right? And he said, "Can you please not lay off these two folks? Because one of them had recently gotten a loan, he had a house. The other one, his wife just gave birth to twins. So is there anything you can do about it?" And the guy said, these are two of my best men on the job. So please try and figure something out so I can keep those two people. So we talked our way through. And then as soon as I hang up the phone, I had to get out of my desk, get a coffee, get my smokes. And I spent about half an hour downstairs thinking what the boxes in my Excel spreadsheets actually meant. And after I was done with my thinking process, I was not extremely happy with what I was doing. I was actually putting together strategies for, saving money, for example, right? Putting contracts and terms and conditions and whatever that had a direct effect on people's lives. And what really, really bothered me at that moment was that I was doing to them what others had done to me when I was in Spain. Because, for example, I spent almost 3 years in Spain. I was one of the best performing managers in whatever company I was in Barcelona, for example. One fine day I was fired. Why? Because the company did exactly what I was doing in Asia. They decided they needed very heavy pay cuts. And it doesn't matter whether you're the best employee or the worst employee or whatever. It was the day I realized that all of us in the corporate world are nothing more than serial numbers on HR lists.
It's a renewable resource, yes.
Yes. No. It's not renewable. It's expendable. It's very different.
In some cases, it's expendable.
It's expendable, right? So we're just an HR code with a price tag attached to that. And I mean, I've been through the absolute paranoia of, oh my God, I lost my job. What am I going to do in Spain? Luckily, an opportunity for Singapore popped up and I just carried on with whatever it was that I was doing. But then, at the back of my head, things were spinning like, George, what are you doing? What's going to happen next time a situation like that knocks on your door? And it was the moment that I realized that despite all the skills that I had attained throughout all of my experiences traveling abroad, migrating, because I did. I mean, I left Greece 3 times already. I lived in Scotland, I lived in the United States, I lived there 4 times actually. I lived in Spain and Singapore. My collection of skills lacked one very important skill, and that was the ability to create my own independent wealth. I knew so many things that I picked up along the way working for companies, and all of that knowledge was extremely useful, right? There was nothing regretful about that. It just, you come to realize one day, what am I going to do if I get dismissed again? And it probably won't be my fault either. Someone at a higher level than me is going to say, how much does this guy cost? Blah, 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 X amount of dollars. Okay, get him out. We can find a cheaper one somewhere in whatever country of the world. And that made me feel, actually it didn't make me feel, it made me realize how vulnerable I was in a corporate world. And that was actually, it took me time to manage that thought, because it's one thing realizing you have a problem, and it's another thing entirely solving that problem completely, right?
Yes.
So I started working at the back of my head that I had to do something to change it. And all the things that, it was not just the fear of losing your job. It's not just the fear of, oh my God, if I lose my job, I won't be able to do anything besides work for a company. So you will have to be constantly send your CV, ask for pray to get an interview. It's a very stressful process. And that was an extra, let's say, glass of water in the bucket of, I really don't like what I'm doing with my life. I really, really don't. But I had this fear because I had never done it before. I had never been, let's say, outside of the corporate world. My entire life, all I knew was being an employee. I had no idea how to do it any other way. But I was too scared to try and break that boundary and alter, let's say, my life.
And what happened? And then you were not scared.
Well, it was a collection of things that happened. The defining moment came on a trip, and I was in Myanmar. I was traveling. I was actually traveling to go and take pictures of the Kenyan festival. It's the New Year celebrations in Myanmar.
Nice.
So it's a huge 3-day celebration. People playing with water all over the country. But anyway, I was on a super long train ride from, let's see where I was. I was going from Mandalay to Lake Inlet back then.
Oh, it sounds so nice.
Sounds like an amazing
I haven't been to Myanmar yet, but it's one of my.
Vicky, you're missing out. Myanmar. I mean, I know they have a coup right now. Things are a bit mixed up in Myanmar.
Yes,
but
right now I think if I would think of Myanmar, I would think like my heart goes out to the people, and I hope really that they're all.
True.
Yes.
But
when you get the chance, do visit the place. It's I don't know how to describe it. Really.
You know me.
I can't find the words to describe Myanmar. Anyway, we're veering away from the subject. So I was traveling in a train, and me being a solo traveler, I usually 9 out of 10 cases I will travel by myself. Because I always use the time I travel to filter things out about my life, about myself. I have plenty of time to organize whatever goes on in my head. And I usually use the backdrop of a country or a destination to do that. And I meet a lot of people along the way as well. So there was this guy sitting on the row, there were wooden benches on the train.
Yeah.
And he was sitting across. And though the rest of us were very talkative and socializing with one another, he just wouldn't mingle with anyone. So after 12 hours on the train, I couldn't resist the temptation of going over and asking, hey, yo, bro, what's happening? Because he would spend his entire time over a notebook writing stuff down. And I'm like, hey, how are you? My name's George. What's happening here? And he was actually very polite and talkative. The moment I touched base with him, he started interacting with me, and I asked him what was he writing down. I thought he was actually writing a book, and he said he said it with a simplicity. It just blew me away. He's like, it's my list of fears, and I was like, list of what? What? And then
why would you make a list of that?
Exactly, why would you make a list of your fears? And the guy was 23.
It's the opposite of a bucket list.
Yeah, exactly. It's the opposite of a bucket list. But then again, bear with me, because that was probably the most epic bucket list I ever came across. So the guy did this. He realized he had a lot of issues with himself. He realized he could not progress through life because there were too many things he was actually afraid of. He was actually petrified of a lot of things. And he realized that all those fears he had living inside of him were stalling him, were keeping him down. They were slowing him down. So he dropped out of everything. I remember him explaining how rich his daddy was. I remember him explaining how amazing his degrees were and his CV and the position that he actually resigned from a very good company. And I think he was Swedish, the guy, but I can't really remember. So anyway, he was traveling the world for about a year when I met him briefly on the train. And he was spending the best part of those 6 months taking, noting down all of his fears, everything he could think of, from things as simple as I'm afraid of mosquitoes, for example, to I'm afraid that, I'm gay and my parents are going to find out and they'll commit suicide. it was like the full spectrum of fears. Okay.
Everything.
And as we were discussing with the guy, he went on explaining what his actual strategy was. So he said, okay, I have a problem and I can't really tackle that problem unless I actually visualize it. So it's kind of like seeing how big the elephant was that he actually wanted to eat. And then he categorized his fears into 3 big buckets, right? So he had the first bucket that was full of very simple, small, silly, idiotic fears. He would toss them in that bucket. He had the second bucket with intermediate kind of fears. And then the third bucket was the real kahuna of fears, right? Big stuff. I mean, at least for him, they were like big deals. So what he did, he would actually write them on paper, and he had the list of the small, the list of the intermediate, and the list of the big fears. And what he did was facing a small fear first, because that was an easy, low-hanging fruit for him. And the moment he crossed it out of his line, he knew he was one fear stronger towards his ultimate goal. And his ultimate goal was creating a list that had no fears in it, which is kind of like an oxymoron, because the moment you delete all of the old ones, some new are going to reappear. But still, I was left speechless by what the guy did. Speechless, I tell you. Because he was like super intelligent. He actually visualized, like, I don't know, probably all of his internal problems. And that was a defining moment for me, because the moment I hit my hostel that day, I started writing down my own list of fears. And I did exactly what, and he was a kid, like he was like 20, 22, I don't remember. He was really young, like really young. And I was in my mid 30s, and I'm like, wow, this guy he's wiser than I am, right? Because he figured things out way in advance. So I sat down and did exactly the same thing. And I spent quite a few years from that point on battling and organizing and crossing out lines on my personal list of fears. And
just what you said quickly, it's like to me, it seems like wisdom is really nothing else than honest self-appraisal, because that's what he did. And I agree with you. That's
actually,
what he
yes,
did.
that's
just
exactly
an honest self-appraisal.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So I created my own list of fears, and I started crossing out one by one, and I did exactly what the guy did. Small ones first, and then you pick up strength and speed by seeing how easy it is to handle a fear which is like small and easy and insignificant at the end of the day. And then I started dealing with my intermediate fears, and then when I reached the really important, this is where shit gets real kind of bucket, there was a line left at the end that was my safety offered to me by my corporate life/salary, right? Because given the position I had...
But this was after you crossed everything off the list already.
That was the last line. That was the last line, and that took me a few years to cross out. But there came a point that I had no other choice than do it. I couldn't bear living with myself not doing it. I actually brought myself to the point of forcing me so much to maintain that scenario of a corporate life and no, George, you can do it, that I actually completely came crumbling down in pieces. I was burnt out totally. And it took me some years to recover from that. So you learn from your mistakes along the way. But then again,
yes, of course.
Yeah.
I never, ever, ever regretted me dropping out of corporate up until this point. Up today, I have no regrets of being out of the corporate world. It was a defining moment. It was a relieving moment, because I no longer had to be a hypocrite. I didn't have to be a hypocrite anymore. I will never forget the last day in my company. So I had the last meeting ever, and I had to do it because it was a super important contract. I designed it, I negotiated it, I was running it. And I had to do that closing meeting because I had signature authority till I handed everything in and walked out of the building. And that was the moment that...
How did that feel?
What do you mean? How did what feel?
When you walked out of that building.
Oh, I'll get to that. I'll tell you. And I need to say this so that everyone understands how it felt. I had this customer who came to me and said, you know what, we don't want to do this job anymore. It doesn't make enough money for us. And I said, you know what, go outside and come back and give me 20% discount, and you will keep on doing the same service, offering the same service for the company. And sure enough, they did. And it was the day they were going to present to me their plan of how they were actually going to do it. And I was just sitting there waiting for time to go by. I'm like, okay, it's my last meeting. I don't have to put up with this anymore. And but you know, I had to pay attention to the presentation and stuff. And I was just so relieved when the guy went through his entire presentation and he said, we'll do X, Y, Z, whatever. But most important of all, we're going to reduce everyone's salary by 20-30%. And therefore, we're going to meet your goals. And I was like, thank you, Lord, for me going through my last day here. And I don't have to sign this contract. I could not, I seriously couldn't, I would not be able to sign that contract. So I just said goodbye to everyone, said it's been a pleasure doing business with you, da-di-da-di-da. Okay, next
that
one.
Classic line.
Yeah, that classic line. And in reality, though I met a lot of amazing people, I had some colleagues that up until now, we're in touch and we talk and I love them like brothers. But there were so many people in there that I had to force myself so much to operate around them. And
yes, you didn't fit.
I did not fit. So when I walked
out,
at
some point you decided that you don't fit.
No. When I walked outside that building,
I think that was an amazing story.
It was a huge sigh of relief. It was like, oh man, I got out. I had no idea where I was going. I didn't have the faintest clue what I was gonna do with my life. I had no clear view of what I actually wanted, but I had a crystal clear view of what I did not want.
Did not want.
And that was a very important first step, because it's very important. If you want to know what you want, you gotta know what you don't want. It doesn't work.
It's a good starting point.
Yes,
true.
Yes,
true.
Right. And
absolutely,
it's been what?
I think that's a very strong point to make. Exactly.
You have to, and some people don't realize, like, oh, I don't know what I want, and I don't know what I want, and like, bro, chill, bro, like, have a coffee, drink a martini or an ouzo. Just
I think
chill.
we live more and more in a time where we just feel like everything has to be chiseled out for us, and this is where we want to go, and we have to see each other.
Yeah, but we have been living in a chiseled out planned world for decades now. I was one of those. I'm a product of that social stereotype that you have to know what you want in life. You're 18 and you have to know what you're going to study. You have to know which university you're going to go to. You have to know whom you're going to marry. You have to know where you're going to live. No, I don't. Like, I really don't have to know any of that stuff. I need time for myself to discover what I actually want. And a lot of us, and especially like with my generation of people, we were like, I'm surprised how we're not schizophrenic, like all of us in our 40s right now in 2021, because we were born in a world where you were supposed to have one job for the rest of your life. By the time we were 15,
and one job only.
Yeah, that's how it was. At least for us Greeks, right? You did what you had to do, finish school, army, university, whatever. You found that job. It was the job. And that was the job that would take you through the rest of your life, go become a pensioner, and then die, right? That was the plan, okay? So we were born to that. Then by the time we were 15, that started changing completely. By the time we hit our 20s, it was like, no, you're going to be getting a new job every 10, 15 years. By the time we were out of the university, no, you're going to be getting a new job every 5 years. And then it's like, you don't even know if you're going to get the job, right? Which someone is going to tell you what that job is. It's like, you know what, guys? No, I had enough of that stuff. I don't want anymore. I want to figure out what I want to do with my life, because it's my life and I'll get one of it. So I said, I'm going to live it any way I want.
One life.
So yes, that was a long story to your question, basically, which I hope I have sufficiently answered. The moment I left the door, the moment I walked outside the building, I literally took a knee. I went for coffee. I had a ciggy. I went to my favorite food court in Tampines, and I had God knows how much roasted chicken rice, which I loved. And then I spent the rest of the day doing nothing at all, because I realized that though my old list was gone, I had a brand new one, and it already had a fear in there. It was like, what am I going to do? It was a very realistic, what am I going to do thinking. And the only thing I had to go on, the only thing I had to go with in whatever adventure I was embarking on was myself. I had nothing else to count on, because I figured if I managed to start from, let's say, a little boy from a small town somewhere in North Greece and did everything I've done so far with my life, why wouldn't or shouldn't I be able to just carry on doing whatever it is that I've been doing? Because everything I had was not given to me. Oh, here, George, take this position. Here, George, get this salary. Here, George, get this degree. It was a bloody struggle. I kid you.
It didn't fall into your lap.
No, of course it did not fall into my lap. It was an actual struggle. And I was enjoying, let's say, the fruits of those struggles throughout my, especially like the last 7 years of my corporate life. It was a joyride. And I was very appreciative of what I was getting in return. But then again, as you progress and evolve through life, you evolve as a person. And then the moment you reach a certain level, you immediately, or at least that's how I am. The moment I hit a milestone in my life, I will enjoy that milestone for a while, and then I will move on to the next one. I have to be having goals ahead of me the whole time. But the problem was with me being in a company was there were no more goals to be set. I didn't want to carry on. I didn't want to target higher. Because had I placed another goal and knowing myself, when I set a goal, I'll achieve that goal. I'll get there. I don't care how difficult it is. I don't care how complicated it might sound. I will find a way and I will get there. I didn't want to go anywhere because I realized I was going to lose myself entirely, completely. I could no longer say, for example, when I resigned, I was a senior director. I was a step away from becoming a junior VP, right? Within the next couple of years. Do you have any idea what decisions junior VPs are called upon taking on their daily lives in a company?
I don't, but I can imagine it's a lot more responsibility. A lot more.
It's not an issue. It's not an issue. Correct. Vicky has hit the nail on the head. It's not the decision. It's the impact that decision has. Okay. So I realized I could no longer, whatever little was left of me, the traveling George, the exciting George, the whatever George, whatever little was left was going to vanish because I could no longer walk along those thin lines in between the Cosa Nostras. I had to pick a side. And the moment, And the moment you pick a side, you're no longer a human being. You're not.
Is it also the way you're telling it now? Is it also the problem that arises with looking at other people with this level of abstraction? Is seeing them only
thank you for saying that.
Employees and not as human beings on an equal.
You can no longer have actual human reactions and interactions with people around you. You just don't know who's against you, who's your friend, who's foe. You can never know, right? You can never know. You can never tell. But in looking people around me, do you know what scared me the whole time? There were so many people around me in pretty much any company I worked for. And I've worked for a few in my corporate career. I would look at them and say, oh my God, is this what I'm going to turn into after 10 years of doing this? Am I going to be this zombie that's going to be in front of his laptop the whole time? I will try and make up any excuse to spend more time at the office just so as not to be at home with my family. Do you have any idea? Do you know how many people actually look up, God knows how many excuses to spend as much time as possible to be in their offices so as not to be back home? This is so sad. I just couldn't believe my ears and my eyes. It was so sad. Like there were so many sad lives around me of people feeling trapped in the corporate world and not being able to do anything about it. And I didn't want to be part of that. I just didn't. It would no longer fit.
With your experience, do you think that this way of corporate experience corporate life, does it impact your empathy for other human beings? Do you have to, because of this abstraction, also
No, it did not. No.
No?
It made certain decisions very difficult at points, right? Because I realized that holds for life in general, right? You can't be Mr. Nice Guy to everyone. You will be run over in no time. That's how life works. Okay. Even if you sell fruits in the market, if you are like, regardless of what you do, you have to know where to set your limits, where to put your foot down. You have to know that kind of stuff, right? But I don't know.
It comes with experience, though, as well.
It does come with experience. That is true, right? So, and speaking of which, of experience, and combining the empathy question, right? I had to learn how to correctly identify whom to be cool with and whom to be Mr. Nice Guy and whom not to be cool with, right? But that kind of like that you can find in any environment. It doesn't have to be a corporate world, right?
Exactly.
It's not like this.
Isn't it
it's not this.
It's
not this hell on earth kind of thingy, right? It's not. A corporate world is a corporate world. You will find a micrography of that in a small, like, family-run business, for example. You will still get that kind of stuff, if not worse, for example. Excuse me. But it was affecting my private life. It was affecting my relationships a lot, right? Because you never, ever, ever stop, right? Some people say, oh, George, you get all this money and you had a car and you have a laptop and you have a cell phone. But you know what? Having a laptop and a cell phone from a company means you can never say, I'm not going to respond to that email because it popped into my mailbox at 11 p.m. Who's paying for your laptop? Who's paying for your phone? See, there's a catch.
But still, they list it on the benefits, on the
it's
job
not a
positions
benefit.
that you are.
It's not a benefit. It's an extra chain they throw on you, like it's a bait. We give you the company
Some
phone.
people think, yes, and the company gym, and the company sauna, and the company house, and the company's everything.
Yeah, the company
and,
gym. Tell me how many times people actually have the time to go visit that bloody company gym. Tell me.
But even when they go to the gym, they talk about the company. So these are, of course, systems which are very much rewarded in the, broader scale, like huge digital multinationals supply these systems. But what you are describing, I really love this story because you are kind of taking us into a journey of the clash of two very different value systems. The whole process of transformation of oneself from, stepping from one value system to another. And you describe it in very simple terms, like a man's story, someone's story and how he made a decision to actually change entirely his way that his brain works, because all of these, our brain are used to thinking in a corporate way, in a non-corporate way.
Correct.
We also train our minds. And as far as I know so far, brains are like repetitiveness, and we sometimes get lose control of our own mind.
That's not the only problem, Vicky. A very big problem is that you're surrounded. See, when you're when you're forced to operate and actually thrive in an environment which is completely different to what you are as a personality, as a person, as a character, as a soul. First of all, it's a very frustrating experience because you don't really have a chill out moment. You have to watch every single word that comes out of your mouth. You have to really think before you talk to anyone, because it's like being a dog in a cat company, right? That's how different I felt. For example,
I like the analogy.
Yeah. Not in terms of aggressiveness, it's in terms of how different things are, right?
Yes.
The challenge was, or the frustration would arise on a daily basis of having to listen to people talk about not necessarily bad stuff or improper stuff, or it was irrelevant stuff for me. I couldn't care less about everything that was being spoken and discussed. And you know what was the worst? The worst time of the week was Friday, when you had to go. It's a matter of managing human relations within a corporate company. You had to go for drinks with your colleagues. And that was my worst hour of the week, because I had to sit there with a beer. I don't drink beer, but you have to drink beer because that's what everybody does, right? And you have to be politically correct always.
Thank God, now you can drink martini.
Yeah, man, I can have a martini. So anyway, and you had to mingle with people that were completely different to you. And there's nothing to talk about. It was like, I wouldn't mind going 8 hours on business planning, strategies, whatever, WebEx calls. I really enjoyed that, right? But it was an absolute torture going through a 1 hour beer buddy colleagues meeting after work. It was, that was my worst hour of the week. And I was avoiding
They
it.
also list that on the benefits. They say company events.
Listen, for people who actually are into that, yes, it's probably their best hour of the week. But what I'm saying, it's really important that whatever environment you find yourself in, it's a like-minded environment, right? It's really, really important.
Yes, I think this is also where you see what a big role company culture plays in the end and how well it works or how not well it works, how superficial it is. But this is what it's there for, to create some sort of a common identity for everybody who is working actually for one goal only. And that is generally, I believe, is to create revenue for a company, right? I mean, I think, as harsh as it sounds, and as much as everybody might now say, that's okay, how things work. But we're all here together because we're one big family and we have the same goal. Yeah, but at the end of the day, the goal of every company is to make more revenue. That's as simple as that.
And there's nothing bad with that.
The smallest cost available. Yes, there's nothing bad with that. That's how corporate companies
inherently
work.
Because yes. But in the process of this being made, that's where the let's say problems begin. Not in the we all have to live somehow.
I'll never forget, I was on a smoke break in Barcelona and the company I used to work for there, and I had just returned from the trip we did in Ghana, in Tsetsere, Vicky.
Nice.
And it was my first day back at work.
So sorry, I have to quickly. You have to give a bit of a background now because otherwise everybody's like, so what happened in Ghana?
Okay,
just quickly, why were you in Ghana? Just
it was a voluntary trip. We'll get to that because being a volunteer was a big part of my life as well.
We'll leave it a cliffhanger. Okay.
Yes, leave a cliffhanger. So I walked in, I had my first tier 5, whatever meeting it was, organized the day, organized the week, sorted out everything that I had to sort. And then I went out again, coffee and smokes. That's a huge thing about me, right? In my daily life. And I was having that coffee and ciggy with a few colleagues of mine, and they were talking. And all of a sudden, I got lost in my thoughts. I was still in Ghana. I was still in Africa. There was still red dust all over my clothes, and I was playing with kids, and I was taking pictures and blah, blah, blah. I was completely in my own world. I was not in Barcelona. I was not in Vilafranca, Valpenedès at that given moment. And this guy taps me on the shoulder, and he's like, yo, Jorge. He's like, where are you? I'm like, bro, I can't really explain to you where I am right now, but... And I just turned my head and started looking into the horizon. It was like I was gazing into infinity, literally. And then he started gazing into infinity. And he's like, George, you know what? You don't belong here, man. He's like, your life is out there. And I was like, why did you have to say that now? Why did you have to hit me like that? Like, why? Why? But at that stage, I was still too scared of everything. I had too big of a chain on my shoulder to even remotely think of the scenario. George, you can break free now. You can the guy's right. Your life's out there. It's not here. What the hell are you doing here? But, that's a different story. So, yes.
No, but it is like it just shows that sometimes, we already internally have realized things, but we don't want to consciously process them. That happens all the time, right? And then sometimes... Exactly. And then then a guy comes in and he confirms exactly to your face what you already know.
Correct.
And this is a moment where you're like, yeah, exactly. This is a moment where you then can go like, okay, I can't escape this.
No, you know what's the best part about realizing how scared, I'm not going to use that French word, but anyway, how scared you are.
Oh, you can use fuck. It's totally fine.
Okay, so when you're scared shitless,
don't be afraid
about it.
Oh, even better.
Yeah. Is when strangers see that in you. It's people you don't know, people who do not know you. So they're not biased about you at all. They will just speak whatever their mind processes of their perception of you. And a guy who barely knew me, I think we just said good morning twice or thrice in the company with him. And he was like, George, you know what? Your life's out there, man. And I'm like, why the hell do you have to say that now, man? It's like, you just... And it was in so many different occasions. Say, for example, describing how bad, not a bad fit, but I just didn't fit in those environments. I was the only guy wearing Converse shoes in the company. I was the only pair of Converse shoes in that floor, on the 8th floor. There were like 130 of us. And it was the typical... It was beige trousers and black leather shoes and light blue shirts, perhaps a tie if there were like a formal meeting or whatever. And I would just show up with like blue spectacles, and I had a hair tattoo before I grew my hair long. And I was the weirdo of the floor. Like, who's this guy? That's the Greek. That's the procurement director over there. That's the Greek guy. That's George. You got a problem. You got a problem. He's gonna fix it. Like, he's weird, but he's gonna fix it, right? Just bear with him, right? He's the weirdo of the company.
I love your blue glasses, by the way. No, they're green, right?
No. Well, now they look kind of greenish because of the lights. But anyway, yes, I love my blue glasses as well. And I guess it takes a bit of time to realize. And only today I was involved in a conversation with someone, quite a special someone, about a quote, and I had to recite Martin Luther King, who said at one of his speeches that one day fear knocked on the door, and then courage got up and opened the door and realized there was no one there. I just love that quote because it's true.
Oh,
it's the
nice.
best. It's one of the best descriptions you can have about what fear is. It's nothing. It's a plume of smoke. It doesn't really exist. It only exists in our brains because we bring up that wall of fears inside of us. And we're the ones who have the power to just go and blow it away, and down it goes. It just takes time to realize that, unfortunately, I'd say. It took me a lot of time.
Fear is like a mirage, if you will. Absolutely.
But it is. But you know what?
It's a powerful mirage. It's a powerful mirage.
It is a powerful mirage, actually. But that's why I found that guy so special on the train and so wise. And he actually, I don't remember his name. Even if I meet him now, I won't remember his face exactly. But he's a guy who actually changed my life completely. That person over there.
Yes, I think
Wow.
it's okay also not to have. I also have some moments in my life that I can't really visualize in full detail, but I know that they've been life changing, and I think they fulfill their purpose in this dimension. That they become what they become, not because they are specific, but because they have to do with long term values that we have, like some dreams
Correct.
we have, and all of that. But
dreams are beautiful to have, Vicky. You need dreams. You can't go on without
Yes, of
dreams.
course.
Not just one. You need dreams, a lot of them, like hopes.
But yes, it is this way of life that you are describing that is very materialistic. We forget to deal with the other energies in our lives, however you call them, if they're energies on dimensions or whatever. It either has to do with our psyche, with our internal world, or with nature, which we are not exactly separate. That's another conversation.
Yes,
But
it is.
yes, for sure, and I believe travel does that to us. And I have to just make one comment to what you said, that it takes time to realize these things. Yes, but what is really time? I mean, look at that. There are so many different journeys out there. How can you say that this time is short and that time is longer? You know, we have a beautiful life now that we live. You never know how long your life is going to be. So time
That
is
is
very
true,
relevant,
Vicky.
especially. And think about it, the way I think about it, in life, it is an always changing process. Even the cells of our body do not remain the same. So why should we? So I think it's a constant journey of non-arrival. And the point to
Yes,
it, of
that's
course,
true.
like it's like Ithaca. It's about
I
all
was
this
going to say
process
that,
and changing
actually.
and all of that.
It's a great poem by
Kavafis,
everybody.
yes, of
By
course.
Kavafis.
Yes, and you know what? And I really like the way that you just told the story right now, because it's a reality. A lot of us have shared one way or another, to different extents, of course. But it is something that we all know, this discomfort of being into a society which exactly is not meant for you. And to be honest, it doesn't have to be, because one society cannot fill everybody's needs. You have to also create your own spring, as I say, and try to make the choices that resonate more with your mind and with your with what your soul wants. And I think that's a beautiful part of the journey. That's exactly what you described right now.
Correct,
Yes.
because there's no destination. It's kind of like the never-ending story. It never ends. It just goes on and on and on and on.
Totally. We want to think, that there is a resting place, that there is a place where happiness will be, and there I won't move anymore. Do we really believe that? I mean, looking at ourselves, that we will stand still on that situation, which
but
looks
listen,
blissful.
Don't say that, because there are actually people out there who believe that, who actually want a destination.
Yes.
Who want happiness.
Yes, no, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, and I have absolutely big respect for that. And this is what I'm saying, all paths are different, but even when you arrive to that state, there is always change happening, regardless, even if you are standing still, even if you have found, for example, your significant other, and you are not looking anymore, still there is a change in this relationship in you. So this is what I'm saying. At some point, we never arrive to some destination. I think the destination is the motivation to just keep on going and keep on going.
That's why the poem says, pray that your journey is a long one, full of adventure, full of discovery, right?
Exactly.
And which wise, everything flows, tapadari.
Tapadari, exactly. Yes, but also this poem has a reference to what George said before about fear knocking on the door and courage getting up to get...
it doesn't just have a reference. It's about what you do with your fears. Not just in that poem. Actually, if you come to think about it, there's so much wisdom in so many places and people and literature and songs all around us. All we have to do is open our eyes and our ears and be, let's say, have a feeling of acceptance for whatever information. Because everything's out there. Everything's just around us. All we have to do is stretch our hands and reach out for the answers and the solutions to whatever problem it is that we're having. It's right in front of us. So Ithaca has helped me a lot. Like, I have spent God knows how many hours listening to that, saying, okay, the Cyclops and Laestrygonians and whatever, I am the one who raises them in front of my soul.
In front of you. Exactly.
And that's why Kavafi says you will never encounter them on your trip unless you bring them, unless you call for them.
Unless your mind sets them in front of you. Yes, of course.
Unless you call for Poseidon. Poseidon's not, as if he cares, right? He's just sitting there down at the bottom of the ocean having fun with the mermaids and all the chicks and stuff. And who the hell cares? And then you call him out, he's like, oh, George is scared again. I gotta appear above the waves and be all scared and stuff. But it's true. And then by looking at ways of battling or dealing with fear, I bumped into another YouTube video where Will Smith describes the French Prince of Bel-Air, right? He described his first experience of jumping off a plane, and he goes blah, 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 blah. And at the end of it, he says, guys, life has placed everything that's beautiful one step behind our greatest fears. And it was so wise, because you have to go on and confront that fear face to face, head on. And then you realized, damn, that was it. That was nothing, right? And I actually did what he did. Yes. I went and jumped off a plane to battle my fear of heights and my acrophobia. And you know what? It worked. It worked. You get on 14,000 feet being one version of yourself. And then about a minute, 45 seconds later, you land. And that's all it took. 1 minute, 45 seconds to become a better version of your own self. It's amazing.
I saw that video. Of you. I saw the footage of you landing in the video you made.
That was a highlight. That was a high point in my life. That was one of the. There was such a rush of adrenaline, like it was rushing through my veins, through my entire body, and it wasn't the thrill of the fall. It was the thrill that I actually dared jump off a plane. And when I say I was scared of heights, I would become like petrified. Like if you like brought me at the edge of a cliff, I couldn't move. Someone had to come and grab me by the shoulders and drag me to the side for me to start moving again. It was that bad because I had fear of heights and acrophobia.
Acrophobia.
Yes.
Acrophobia I have myself too.
Yeah,
I can't
you know what?
But I'm working on it.
So no, here's the trick now. I no longer have acrophobia. I have fear of heights still. So I guess if I jump off a plane a few more times, I'll be cool. But the feeling of it was
jumping without a parachute.
No, bro, don't even get there. That is actually one thought that never crossed my mind. I love my life. I love life in general too much, right? For even remotely thinking.
That's very good. That's very good because that means you'll be careful with it as well.
Yeah,
careful
I will.
Enough, at least.
So, yeah, I guess, like looking back at it all the problems, everything arises from the fact that we're scared of stuff we shouldn't be, right? It's
Absolutely.
okay. I mean, just go and try it out because you never know unless you try it out. How do you know?
I think what to take away from this really just that facing your own fears is a very powerful thing, and that generally when you do it, you have definitely a more positive outcome than you would imagine.
I firmly believe that we all must push ourselves outside our comfort zones from time to time because that's the only way you get growth, right? If you keep on repeating the same stuff over and over and over again,
absolutely,
you're doing the same stuff. But the moment you say, "Hey, let's go see what's on the other side of the fence," that's when you have to learn the skills of, for example, okay, other side of the fence. I need to find a way to jump the fence. So if you have never jumped a fence, there you go. That's a new skill. You know how to jump a fence. That's a very simplistic example, but that's how it works.
But that's absolutely essential. I agree with you entirely. It's absolutely essential to also move the boundaries that you have, know them, but also be able to maybe push them a little further. That's also something.
So how is it like on the other side of the fence, George?
Yes, that's a fantastic transition.
What happened?
So what happened when you climbed over that fence?
On this side?
What did you face?
It is extremely difficult. It's been 3 years plus, and I'm still trying to get a firm foot down on whatever it is I'm trying to do. I got so close to it all, but then again, COVID happened, and it's just everything I had planned came, crumbling down in ruins. And that was the most difficult part.
What did you have planned, if I may ask? If I may be so bold?
You may be bolder than that, actually. So what I figured was, okay, I knew I was burnt out. I was clinically burnt out. I was I went to a doctor and said, George, you're so bad. I'm not really sure how much time it's going to take you to recover from how much you've messed up yourself. And he said...
So just quickly, sorry, chronologically. So from the moment you stepped out of the office building, right? We're still kind of there. Where are we now? Where have we moved now? Is this right after this, your burnout, or is this something more recent?
No. The burnout happened while I was at my last corporate job. It happened in Singapore.
Yes.
It was a combination of all that mess. It was like promotion after promotion and tasks after tasks. And it was like I was going through I had no personal life. I was traveling the whole time. I was working nonstop. It was an endless ordeal, so to speak. And that came combined with a huge breakup I had in Singapore, which basically that was my driving force through all that. Because I actually had made a conscious choice of saying, okay, 2 years before I left Singapore, I said, no, I'm going to leave now. So instead of leaving in 2017, I figured, no, by 2015, I'm not cut for this shit. I need to go out. Then I met someone, you fall in love, you know how it works. So I chose to stay to be with whoever I wanted to be back then. And that was my driving force that kept me alive through all the crap. And when I no longer had that, all of a sudden I ran out of steam completely. And I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? But it was too late and it also that what brought the burnout was that up until that point, up until 2017, I was yet to discover my limits as a person. I couldn't find limits in myself. up to that point, there was nothing that life had thrown at me, and I had not chewed up and spat it out and moved on. Nothing. And it ranged from dengue fever to absolute poverty to having to survive in societies and cultures where everything was so different and distant from what I was used to. And I had, like, for example, 3 or 6 months to do that. Get used to being away from your family, away from your friends, away from your country, surviving in environments and situations. You had no manual of what to do. You had to improvise along the way. And I had successfully done that. So that was my, let's say, arsenal of skills that I knew I had to progress through it all. And when the combination of being overworked, overstressed, overfrustrated, and heartbroken all coincided, I'm like, oh, here's my limit line. You know what the problem was? My limit line was 10 feet behind me. I had already crossed it.
Yes.
And then I'm like, I was kind of like the coyote that was running after the road runner in a cloud, and then the cloud vanishes, and he's all of a sudden on top of a canyon and he starts falling. That was me, right? And I just fell. And when I hit the ground, it was a really, really bad hit, right? And so what I did was I left Singapore and I okay, screw it all, dump everything, drop everything, just go back home, rest, recuperate, reorganize, and just spend time doing stuff you love. No more musts, no more whatever, only once, nothing else. So I came back to Greece. I bought the flat that I'm in right now with my savings, whatever I had. I turned that into a 1.5 years, if you can believe that, project of turning. It's a 1957 flat in the center of Thessaloniki. And I decided not just to renovate the place for me to live in, I was actually going to restore it and bring it back to its original glory it had when the first owners walked in 1957. Nice. So I started making a time capsule project of it, and I did everything with my 2 bare hands. A lot of help from my brother, of course. But it's not a museum. All the radios work, all the record players work. They're from like 58 or 57 or whatever. My refrigerator, my stove, my washing machine, all the furniture, the decoration, and all of those things took crazy amounts of time to complete and restore and trace and source and bring here. But it was a 1.5 years of hands-on manual creative work, because I realized I had spent 13 years in companies pushing, keys on a keyboard. And I had this incredible lust inside of me to do creative stuff, right? To paint, to draw, to design, to repair, to upcycle, to do whatever, right? Because those were hobbies that towards the end of my career, I didn't have time for. So I was completely deprived. Like my creative side was like screaming inside of me. So my plan was I was going to do that. I'm going to turn that into an Airbnb apartment. So whenever I would have customers, I would move over to my brother who just lives like 2 blocks away from here. And that's how I was going to make my first money so that was going to be my first line of revenue. Because of course I made a plan. I was a procurement guy, right? I was handling budgets and finances and stuff. So I had a plan. So I'm like, okay, that's
it can be helpful. It can be helpful from time to time.
My experience through corporate has been not just helpful, it has been valuable, right? Because I've attained skills that, everyday people don't really have. But anyway, so my plan was I was actually going to have the flat operating as an Airbnb, and I'll do that for a year, full speed, like full on. And that would give me the time to organize my photography job exactly the way I wanted to. And it actually started so well. Yeah, go ahead. Ask the question. You'll burst if you don't.
See, this is the advantage with a video interview.
Yeah.
Or the disadvantage. Yeah, exactly. All the disadvantage. You have to judge at the end. No, I just wanted to know because you said photography now, and I was wondering, when you left that building after you quit the job and you crossed that off your fear list, basically. photography was something that you were passionate about before, and did you contemplate it right then as well, maybe as a possibility of spending your time of this new life that was lying ahead of you?
Yes, the plan was that photography, right?
All right.
Photography came in my life in 2008, exactly the way I describe it on my profile, right? It was supposed to be a one-night stand. I had this breakup with a girl I was dating in New York back then, whatever. And then, when you try to recover from a breakup, you go for the first creative thing that comes your way. And I was just walking down the promenade of Thessaloniki, and I saw this poster saying, okay, photography lessons, whatever, at the YMCA here. So I took classes for a month, and I was taught how to develop film back then, right? 2008. So digital was still kind of like entering the market, but was there, but wasn't exactly there. There were still a lot of film guys out there, and I was one of them. And I fell in love with it, guys. I had this like dark room set up in my house, and the moment I developed my first film, and then I went on printing my first picture, I'm like, I love this. So I started spending more time with it. It was just a hobby back then. It was not supposed to be, like a profession, so to speak. And I was like doing a bit of street photography here and there, but nothing wow. Okay, it was just a good companion, because I guess I'm a bit of a solitary fellow most of the time. Then I started taking my camera with me on my trips, because it was my travel buddy as well. And one thing led to the other, and then I started taking pictures, and I'm like, that's kind of a cool picture I just took. And people started seeing my shots, and I'm like, hey, George, that's some really nice shots, man, like really nice shots. So I started like believing a bit more, but still it was a hobby. And then I started meeting people along the way, and Vicky was one of them. And when we met in Kenya, actually that trip in Kenya, the first like real shots, like my first travel photography shots, I took in 2010 in Kenya in the Cool Hero project.
Are we going to have it another cliffhanger, or are we going to talk about the project?
No, it's very simple. You have to ask the question, and I will tell you. Right?
So what happened in Kenya? What happened in Kenya? Just quickly, so that we get everybody on board. Like, what were you doing there? And what were you doing?
I'm preparing you. There's nothing quick about the questions you're asking about me, right? So
I had a feeling.
I
had a feeling about that.
It's complicated.
The quickly thinking you can forget. So it was 2010. It was right before I left. I moved out of Greece, and my plan was to move to Spain. I had already found a job there. I was super excited about it, and I wanted to do one last thing, like that would be fun, right? Before I moved to Spain. So I was part of an NGO. I was supporting an NGO back then. And they actually sent an email, and they said, hey guys, to all our supporters, we're actually thinking of doing our first ever voluntary trip in Africa. Do you care to join? I didn't even think. I just went, boom, yes, without thinking twice about it, right? So there I was like 2 months later, landing in Mombasa airport, and going there to support, or to run a project, a microeconomy project, to support a group of people that were stigmatized because of their HIV status, which is it bears a social stigma, not just in Kenya, in a lot of countries, right? So the plan was to go there and do something to help them out, to have a better quality of life. So there was like an agricultural side to the project. We were gonna donate land to them and help them, like grow vegetables so that they could sell those and create income, because the plan was they couldn't even afford to go get their pills from wherever the government was giving them free pills for HIV. So what the project was to try and create a sustainable microeconomy project for those people to become self-sustained, so to speak, financially, at least.
Yes, to say here that Lagobaya was a very, let's say, quite isolated community. So imagine it has dirt roads. It's not easy to access. At that area, there is not developed public transportation people. Not all of them have their own vehicles. They rely heavily on bikes, which of course they can cover some distance, but you can't go everywhere on a bike. And apart from that, they also have to put up with stigma, as George says, which means that they're even more reluctant or not able to have access to what the society around them can offer, even if they would like to. So yes, that project is exactly what George described. It was about an irrigation system and anyway setting up, let's say, a foundation so that through the years they can develop some form of independence, to have some crops, to have some financial activity so that they don't depend so much on resources which are not available.
And this is where you met, of course.
Yes,
well.
it was part of that voluntary trip, and that's how that's where we first met when George came along to this trip. It was a group of 40 people from Greece and Cyprus, if I remember well.
Yes.
And and it was the first trip of that organization ever, and also one of the first trips that ActionAid Kenya had ever done. But it was a very, let's say, important experience, I think, for the most of us who were part of it. Not just because it was the first time, but because George will explain why it was an important, let's say, journey to make.
That was a life-changing experience for him. I mean, up until that point, I don't know how to best describe it. It gave me a window. I think I'm getting a bit emotional now, right? It gave me a window.
That's right, I get it.
No, I'm seriously getting a bit emotional. At the end of it, I'll start in an opposite way. That trip, that week in Kenya, in Langobaya, which, mind you, last time I checked Langobaya on Google Maps, I couldn't find it. That was 1 year ago. I still couldn't find Langobaya. It's been 10 years since we were there. It's one thing looking at images of Africa from the comfort of your couch with the aircon on, pizza, refreshments, I don't know what, clothes, your fancy car in your front yard or God knows what. And then you all of a sudden get on a plane. I'll never forget that feeling. Never. I caught my flight from Amsterdam Schiphol airport. And I ended up in Mombasa. And from Mombasa, we flew to Malindi. That airport in Malindi I'm like, where's the airport? It was a small building, one like airstrip. And everything was happening in a room. So customs, like boarding, departures, arrivals, everything was handled in one room, right?
Minimalism.
Minimalism.
I love it.
Then you get on the bus and all of a sudden, the image you had from your flat bed screen, whatever, millions pixels, whatever, it actually has a smell. That's the first thing that hits you. That image smells. And depending where you are, it smells really well or it smells really bad. Poverty smells. You all of a sudden, you get more senses. It's not just your hearing and your sight that creates feelings out of experiences of what you're seeing. You can feel it because people touch you and you touch them. You can feel how rough their skin is. You can see their feet. It's an explosion of information right in front of your eyes. And it actually hits you with a realization of, this is what I've been watching on, I don't know, on a documentary on Netflix, for example, or National Geographic, on BBC, whatever, right? That's what it feels being there. Insects, for example, monkeys all over the place, unbelievable traffic, heat that you could never thought existed on this planet, and then you actually start interacting with people, like the people of Kenya or the people of Ghana or the people of Malawi or whichever country you go, not just in Africa, any part of the world that you've never been to before, any part of the world. and you hear them talk and laugh and dance. And like one of the first things that actually I could not believe I was experiencing was I was in Langobaya. When I say in the middle of nowhere, it was the middle of bloody nowhere. There was nothing there. Nothing, absolutely nothing. People were so poor at that part of Kenya that there were guys that were wearing one t-shirt because that was the only t-shirt they had. Can you understand they had one t-shirt. It was full of holes. It was full of God knows what, right? They had one piece of clothing with them. When we walked into the settlement, like the small village of the group, they had decorated everything and they were dressed up. They were dancing to welcome us. And they had strips of fabric on the ceilings of their houses.
Yes, and the wires.
On the wires. And as they were dancing, I realized that those people that only had one item of clothing to them had actually cut a strip out of their skirts and their shirts and their pants to use it as decoration on a piece of wire for us that showed up to help them. That was not just a slap on your face. That was a punch in the gut. Those were people that were like, for example, and it makes you like, you rewire and reset your entire universe theory and what life is all about when you mingle and interact with people who live in an environment completely different to yours. Because we live in a parallel universe and they live in a parallel universe, right? For example, I could not understand how the hell those people laughed and smiled and danced the way they did. They would get, on a good day, 3 meals of ugali, which is corn flour boiled with water, and that's it. You should see them dance. You should see them crack jokes. It's unbelievable. And we, like the developed nations, right, get depressed over Netflix not connecting, for example.
Yes.
You make some realizations.
Other set of priorities.
Yeah, yes. It's a completely different set of priorities. You're like, what? You're like, I couldn't sleep. I was there for a week. It was difficult to sleep. It was very difficult to sleep because all of a sudden you realize that you live in a world that I was questioning if my life was the real life and theirs was not, or was it vice versa? That's the real life and I'm living like in a bubble. Like, what's the story there? I was taught
what you're describing.
The Truman Show. It was the Truman Show.
Yes, it is.
What I just want to say, I think this also makes me quite emotional because first of all, I believe
you have a similar experience that you don't
No,
have
yes, I mean I obviously have spent time in Africa as well, and it's part of my very personal history, and nonetheless I also know that I experienced Africa as a white guy. And that has its limitations in itself, right?
Correct.
So even though I live there, it has a lot of limitations. So I'm thinking, that the problem with Africa a lot of the times is that because of our own reality, and like you just described it as well, as being white guys living a privileged life in that sense, and knowing it no different, we see Africa a lot of the times as like this example of how you can live with less, or how they can still have this spirit and all of that, despite the hardship of their lives.
Idealistically,
right?
you mean?
Idealistically, yes, idealistically. There's a problem in that though as well, that we will, in that sense, also very easily stigmatize Africa in that sense. Positively, and also positively discriminate Africa in that sense, and without, and it doesn't empower us in a way to, though it doesn't empower us to improve anything though. It just leaves, it's just a fleeting look at Africa, and then we're on our way again. right? It doesn't solve
necessarily.
No, I
Maybe
don't
if you
entirely
look at
agree to
it-
that. I don't entirely agree to that, to be very honest.
That's good. So that's why this is a conversation. I also don't know.
And I will tell you why.
Yes,
Africa,
please.
for my part, at least, I feel very lucky that my first ever experience, both of Africa and of Asia.
And sorry,
right?
just quickly, because Africa is also obviously a huge continent. So
Yeah,
we
of course,
shouldn't talk
of
about
course.
Africa in general in that sense. But I started that though, to be in all honesty. So
Good point.
yes, good
Douze
point.
points.
So the different countries that make up Africa. Yes.
What I'm trying to say is that I'm really happy I didn't visit, you can say Africa, but I was in Kenya, right? That my first ever experience of an African country, of Kenya, which was a dream destination, for example, for me from when I was a kid, was not like a tourist. I did not go there
it was different.
as a tourist. I went there as someone who wanted or thought that could bring change to the world, the specific society, to whatever you may want to call it. And not being locked up in a hotel, but being out in the field, mingling with locals, we were cultivating fields and installing like water pumps and building stuff and pouring concrete. And I can still remember the word for water was maji. The guys were calling for maji, that which was water, right? I learned so many things in 7 days that I don't think a year in university is going to bridge that gap of how much stuff you learn when you expose yourself to realities of the world. I'll never forget how touched I felt. And that was my first tattoo, actually. I never thought up until that point I would actually get a tattoo in my life, ever.
Look at you now.
Yeah, look, I got three. Now I got three. So
big ones.
Yeah. And people ask me like, why do you have like this flag of Kenya on your shoulder, and what's written in there? So on the last day, the guys from the community, the Kuluhiro is what they call, which means hope. They wanted to give us something in return, right? They wanted to give us a present, but they were so poor, all of them. They bought some like really basic souvenirs and stuff, but that's all they could afford. So what they did was they called up he was the wizard of the tribe, right? Who was observing us throughout the week. And that wizard was socially and culturally burdened with the privilege, so to speak, of christening all the children that were born into that community. And he would christen them a name based on, I don't know, whatever he thought he would. So he was walking around the group and he was observing all of us. And on the last day, their present to us was to christen us with a Swahili name based on what we did best during that week that we were there. And my name was Bisibora from them, because I was the guy. That means it's the master chef of the village, the guy who cooks anyway.
Yes.
Because I asked on the second day to go and work with the women of the village, because they were like far outside of the community, because women are in a difficult position still in a lot of countries. So I said, no, I want to go work with them. And the men were like, what? You're gonna work with the ladies, you're gonna clean potatoes and rice. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to work with the ladies. So it went so well that I spent 3 days in the kitchen cooking, right? And that's how I got my nickname, the Mbisibora. And as soon as I got back, I actually tattooed that on my shoulder, because I wanted to be able to recollect every single moment from that trip, which I still do to this day, almost 11 years later. Every time I look myself in the mirror, I don't ever want to forget that experience. That was not a trip. That was an experience.
No. Can I be?
Yes. Sorry. Yes. You can't be a whatever.
A douchebag.
Yes.
You can be a douchebag and interrupt me again. I got that. I live with that. You're totally right. But
well, you started the.
You can be a real dick. It can be a real dick and interrupt me again.
I thought you were going to say jerk, because you started with a J and you just cut it short there. But no, yes, go ahead.
You know what? I'll just put in a blank, and everybody can fill in whatever they want. No, the only thing that I want to make sure that that's also clear. I absolutely understand what you're saying, and with everything I've said, I also understand there is so much value in visiting Africa in so many ways. And I know the intention of your trip because I know you were there with Vicky, and I know Vicky's intentions. And so for me, there's no question, right? There was never a question
we don't share all the
of
same
your intentions. No.
Okay, me and George, I think we have the same feelings. Okay, of course, differently on a personal level, but generally, yes.
But I understand the trip
who travels shares the same intentions to one place. I think.
Can I just quickly finish what I wanted to say?
Yes,
sorry,
that was you lived in South Africa. That's why you are saying that.
No,
you have a different idea of it.
I have an idea of South Africa. So because I have an idea of South Africa doesn't mean that I have an idea for the whole of Africa, first of all. And I don't even think I have an exceptional idea of South Africa because, like I said, I lived in South Africa as a white guy, which is a very big difference because I was living in a house that was fenced in from the rest because I was white and I could afford that, right? Very different experience to growing up in a township in South Africa, which I have absolutely no idea what that reality looks like. I have visited. Yes, I mean, I have visited townships. I've been there, but I've always been there as an outsider, as a visitor, and that's not the same as living there, right?
Correct.
So the only reason why I'm saying these things is because South Africa has given me a large degree of my emotional and my personal integrity, I believe, to some degree. And it is my formative years. It was my formative years. I grew up there, basically. And the only thing is that I think when we look in from the outside as Europeans or as, lands of the North or developed countries, whatever you want to call it, there is a tendency that we define Africa by its poverty. And this is the only thing that I wanted to say. I'm not saying that you are doing this, but this is a thing that is done a lot of times. A lot of times people define Africa by its poverty. And when we do this, we forget that Africa, and I'm saying Africa in its entirety now, even though I know how flawed this is. As an idea, as a continent, like we describe Europe as well. I'm just saying this is a mistake that we make all the time, because by doing that, we forget that all Africans, they're not just poor. They're amazing people.
Of course
they make great music. They have so much.
Don't tell me about African music, man. I just love their music. I love African music. I will never
Absolutely.
Give it up.
I think that is exactly the differentiating points in what George describes in this experience.
Absolutely.
That it's not a quick idea that you have as a tourist. It is a different experience. It's a bit intermediate, of course. Okay, you don't live there all your life.
I'll tell you this.
You have an immersion into one community for some time, and that time, for some people, if they are in the right state of mind and they are open and they take this information in and this experience in, can be life changing. And just like every experience that we have through travel, not just in Africa, it could be anywhere. And I think that's the magic of it. But I agree with you. Sometimes we have ideas, and that is what I love travel about. It breaks down stereotypes, like the stereotype that Africa is related to poverty, and that's it. Okay, that's a fact, but that's one fact. There are so many other facts related to it.
There's such cultural abundance, exactly, and a lot of the times. This is taking a very far second when we talk of Africa and thinking of it as being poor.
Yes, and you know what? Social media is doing a great work about that, because Africans themselves, first of all, can depict their own image as they like. And the second of all is that there are so many people traveling who share their experiences. So you don't just have the magazine which you read. You don't just have the documentary that you see. You have an own experience expressed through video, through photography.
Yes.
And which brings me, I really want to talk about what's coming next, because speaking about travel and how it opens up your horizon, your mental horizons, and your let's say opens up yourself into a new world every time. George is planning a beautiful trip, which I really want to know more about. I don't know How is that going to happen? Apart if George tells us a little bit about jumping from Kenya into some intermediate stops maybe, to lead us to what you're planning next, because really I'm a curious person. I'm not very patient.
I'll tell you.
I really want to. I've seen some trailers. I've seen everything.
The reason why I started
with
the reason why I started with the Kenyan experience is because
because I asked a lot of times about it as well.
Besides that, that was the trip, and that experience actually opened my Pandora's box in a sense of how to travel. Ever since Kenya, for example, I can't remember myself visiting a country for tourism. That's why, for example, I choose to travel alone because I want to go explore. That's why, for example, I don't go to hotels. It's been like, excluding my business trips with companies, whatever, that I was staying in hotels. Every time I packed a backpack and switched my phone off and vanished into a country, I was always looking for its people, its culture, its music, its food, its coffee, its tobacco, its traditions. It's regardless of whether I was in Malawi or Kenya or Ghana or Philippines or Burma or whatever, it opened a completely new world for me. You know, what opened that window to a new world were the people I would meet along the way. They are like people of different nations, different cultures, different religions, different backgrounds. All of them, every single person I've met along the way, from the ones that we ended up being, I don't know, whatever, friends, lovers along the way, sex buddies, to like, I bought oranges from someone and moved on, or stopped at a restaurant in Warung in Nusa Penida in Indonesia, for example, and had lunch and moved on. Every single person has played his or her role in me being who I am today. And that became kind of like a drug. I can't travel any other way anymore. I just can't. Like, you can't just throw a cruise ship in my face, say, hey, George, look at all the fun you're going to have. I'm like, can you please give me a moped and like open?
Depends on the cruise ship. Depends. Because, for example, there are cruise ships in Manaus, in Brazil, where you travel on your hammock. You know, they're designated hammock places. You have your hammock and you have your stuff right underneath your hammock, because that is the only space you can occupy, my friend. And that can get tight. So, depends on the cruise ship.
Okay,
maybe. But no, I get your point. The cruise ship is a symbol of mainstream.
Yeah, so I can't do mainstream. Yes. I just can't. There's so many experiences. There's so many experiences out there. Like, I don't like being locked up in a ship, for example. I mean, I've even tried it as a diver. I can't do a live on board. It's a matter of personal taste or liking, so to speak, or preference. It doesn't work for me, right? What really gets my traveling juices going is the potential of being at the right spot at the right time and interact with people that are actually going to help me become a slightly better version of who I am today. And actually, by traveling, you understand so much stuff about people around you. Say, for example, music can be a common thing. And people say, how does music relate to that? But let me tell you this. After you introduced me, for example, in Ghana to Lucky Dube, when I went to Malawi 5 years later and I was playing Lucky Dube on the field, people...
Lucky Dube,
but let me tell you this.
He's from South Africa.
I know.
He's great.
I know. I immediately had a very important connection point with people from Malawi. I knew who Ali Farka Touré was, for example. I knew Azawade. Yes. I knew so many artists already of African music. And with me being in love with African music, I was so obsessed with listening to it that I immediately had a connection point with a culture that was totally strange to mine, like strange, different, right? And there's beauty in that. For example, take Greeks, for example, and Bulgarians. There are traditional folk songs that the only difference in between them is the lyrics. We have identical dances and songs, right? So that it's like traveling,
especially in the northern Greece.
Yeah, traveling, for example, made me understand how many things there are out there that can bring us together as nations, as people,
that we share in common.
That we share in common, right? Greeks and Turks, for example, or
absolutely.
You can bring any example you want. There's so many things out there to bring us together. And when you travel and you expose yourself to all of those experiences, you kind of like realize that the world is not that distant, hostile collection of countries as, I don't know, news or media might want you to believe. It's not. There's so much coolness and goodness and awesomeness out there. And traveling really helps that. And that's how the next plan comes into play. I miss that. I want to experience more of that. There are like so many parts of the world that I want to visit. And I realize that I've been all over the place. Tropics, Asia, Africa, I haven't seen anything of Europe. I've seen very little of what's going on next door, because I always had this silly, stupid impression that, Europe's next door. I can go anytime I want. Easy peasy, man.
Yeah, but then you never do. And that goes for a lot of things in life.
And then you never do, which is a mistake. And this is a learning, right? Then the pandemic comes by. You're like, oh my God, I can't get out of my house. What? What's going on?
Yes.
So this is a new project, basically. It's the mini diaries that I'm working on. So wait, let me just set this up a little bit, right? Uh-huh. A little bit.
Okay,
just ever so slightly. So I know there's one very big love in your life, right? A very big love.
I've got a lot of big loves in my life.
Oh, okay. Good for you. By the way, good for you. I'm happy to hear that.
That's a problem. Yes.
I'm very happy to hear that. But there's one big love in your life that doesn't how can I put it? That's
blue?
That's blue. Oh yeah, very good. That's blue.
It's very blue.
That's quite small. Uh-huh. And it really doesn't demand a lot of attention as well. And it's always there waiting for you to come.
Full of character.
Who might we be talking about? Might we be talking about?
That's Bob.
Who is Bob?
Who is Bob, George?
Tell us about Bob.
Who is Bob?
So Bob is a little rascal. Who is Bob? Bob is my car. Bob is my love life. Bob is like, okay.
Bob's not your uncle.
No,
Bob's not your uncle.
Well, eventually he's going to be my uncle, but it's my 1976 Austin Mini 1000. It's like people have like pets and dogs and cats and goldfish, and I got Bob, okay? Because trust me, he takes up an equal amount of time in upkeeping it and doing whatever you got to do with him. And he actually does have a character, like a dog or a cat or whatever. So you can treat it nice and it pisses on you. You know, that's how it works. But it's
it has a life in it.
Of course it has. I kid you not, that car has a soul. He's like Herbie, right? But he was different.
Okay, if you say that, I have to ask you, how? Okay, you said 76, right? So Bob 76. Is 25 years old by my math. 45 years old.
Oh, there you go. That's better.
See, this is also why I became a photographer, because I suck at maths.
Yeah, good.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, good choice. So better photographer than a rocket scientist. Right?
You gotta count the summers in as well, right? Don't skip them, right?
True. That's a technical detail, but an important one. When did you first lay eyes on Bob? And please explain that moment to us, and we're imagining some Barry White playing in the background while you tell the story.
So I first laid eyes on Bob. It was 2006. I already knew what car I wanted to get. It was a Mini, classic Mini. I had already spent 2 years looking for a decent one, but to no avail. And then I was working as a sales engineer back then in a company here in Greece. So I was up in northern Greece, overseeing a work site, and I was done with my work, and I had to drive back to Thessaloniki. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to make a stop at Giannina, which is a very important city in northwest Greece.
And very nice.
And it's a beautiful city as well, actually. So anyway, I was just walking through looking for a place to crash for a while and eat something. And I saw this blue little thing parked at the corner with a for sale sign on it. And it was kind of like a love at first sight. I just walked around it a few times and I checked on him. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take you for a spin and see what you're like. So I called up the guy from the ad, came by, drove him. I was back in 4 days. I took the last night bus from Thessaloniki. I made it to Yanina. I think it was something like 5 a.m. Everything was closed. So I slept on a bench at the bus station, waiting for the public services to open up so I could do all the paperwork and stuff. And I had a backpack with me with some very basic things. I had like a set of spark plugs, points, a condenser, and spark plug cables, I think. So I just bought the car, paid the guy, got the papers, drove it to about 5 kilometers outside of Yanina, did a full service of the car on the side of the road, and I just set out and I drove him straight, flat out, back to my hometown. And he's been my love and hate affair ever since.
What is it? Why was it so clear for you to have a Mini? What is it about Minis that fascinates you so much?
Oh, that's a very difficult question.
Okay, it makes it even more difficult. What about Bob? What is it with Bob then?
No, it's not. Bob is a Mini.
Let him answer. Give him a moment here.
Okay, okay.
There's a thing about, so I had a friend of mine who had a Mini and I drove it once, right? It's such a unique car, actually, that once you drive it, you're like, oh my God, I'm driving a go-kart, but this one has a license to drive on public roads. It's amazing how the car drives. It's so tiny on the outside, and then you go in, and I'm like a 6'1" guy, right?
Yes.
And you're so you're like, where did all this space come from in this tiny little fellow? It's the design of the car is ingenious, and it actually won me. Like, it had me at hello. Like, at the first turn of the engine, the car had me, and it's alive. It may be small and it has a tiny engine, but for a 1,000cc car, Bob can really go. Like, trust me, it goes. So it was incredible fun to drive. It is incredible fun to drive it. Driving that car, a lot of old cars actually, puts a smile on your face. It's like, oh, I got nothing to do on board. You know what? The heck with it. I'm going to take Bob for a spin. And you come back refreshed and happy and cheerful, and then you go about with your day. So it's much more than just a car. It's something that's it brings my spirit up, right? It's a cool thing to drive. It's a fun thing to drive.
I totally understand that. I have a car just like that. My car is a little bigger. It has a different color as well, but I can relate to that. It's just, it's difficult also to put it in words. It's just a feeling, just getting in there and just taking it out for a spin, and then just being able to, in Greece especially, park it next to the beach, and in my case, make yourself a cup of coffee. Sit there with the open sliding door and invite life right in.
It's just Cosa Nostra accent of your cup of coffee. It's like you're from New Jersey. It sounds
cup of coffee. Yeah. No, Brooklyn. It's Brooklyn. Okay, it's Brooklyn.
What's wrong with you, right?
Yeah, it's like Anthony Fauci. He's from Brooklyn. This is how he talks. Let's see. Because you said Cosa Nostra so many times, I thought I would just,
I think this is the only kind of mafia that we would like, the type of Cosa Nostra we both agree we would like to be members of. This kind of Cosa Nostra.
Yes, absolutely. Why not? The coffee Cosa Nostra, right? Is that what it is? Or I'm not entirely sure, but yeah.
The Cosa Nostra of having the...
Which Cosa Nostra are we promoting right now?
Relationship with life through a vehicle, through a way of life that vehicle enables you to have, and the opportunities that a vehicle gives you. Like, for example, now you mentioned you're on a beach, you open up your sliding door, you have a nice coffee. George is driving Bob down the seaside road of Thessaloniki. You have this beautiful, nice coastline on the one side. I mean, the horizon.
I just also have to say that I don't know if you have seen it as well, but Bob is just it's a work of art. Honestly, if you look on the inside, like the way that some of the stuff is also covered, like in this jeans textile, like his what is it? I didn't even know all these parts in the car. I didn't even know, but like the steering wheel
column
thing?
covers, yes, the thing.
Column, thank you. The
Yes.
steering wheel column, yes, you can tell. I suck at mechanical engineering. Really, the truth is, there was nothing I could do but photography because it really takes absolutely no like competence in whatever. So I was left with nothing. This is where I ended up. So exactly, it's just a wonderful car. It's a piece of art.
Just
Is this
like
also
Fonzie,
how you?
I think, just like Fonzie, I think Bob is also
Thank
the
you very much
idea.
for saying that. Thank you very much for saying
yes,
that.
that's why it's nice to have you here, George. Because yes, totally,
Absolutely.
I think this ride is absolutely meant for Fonzie.
I guess so.
Absolutely.
I guess so.
Totally.
Did you do the interior as well? You must have probably put a lot of time into that as well, because I saw the upholstery, like the jean textile that's holding things together, the way that you can place things under the back seats and stuff. It's just wonderful.
You have a lot of cavadzas in there, I suppose.
Yes, there's a lot of
Kavadzas, by the way, for everybody that's non-Greek, is like a backup.
Yes, correct.
Second.
Yes, for people who, kavadza is the backup, but it is such a... You can't really say that kavadza is a backup, it's just a backup.
No, it's more than that. I know,
but no, the kavadzas.
George, you give it a try.
No, hold on. No, the kavadza that all the secret like storage spots that Bob has, like all classic minis do, and it's part of how ingenious Alex Isigonis' design was in conceiving that car. That there was so much space in there. There's like loads of space everywhere to put stuff in a mini, and you're like, how the heck, man, did you do that? And it's there. You can see there's under the seat, next to the seats, on the doors, there's this big dash and stuff. Of course, everything with denim in there. It's my design, my ideas. A lot of them I've done myself. Some of it, like the seats, were done by a friend of mine who does upholstery for cars and stuff. But the rest of it is basically my old pants and trousers, like all the denim I could find. And actually, I'm doing a few more.
Do you still have any pants left?
I actually got.
I mean, we're living in a.
No, I started stealing stuff from my brother and my father now, and whatever I can get my hands on and some denim, it will just disappear. So if you lose your pants, I was probably there at some point, and stole them from you.
But thank God for the pandemic, because we live in the Zoom age. So it's like, basically nobody cares what we look from the waist downwards. It's nobody
Correct.
cares
Nobody
anymore, so it's totally fine.
So you won't miss your jeans when I come by stealing them.
No, nobody cares anymore. I mean, everybody's wearing boxer shorts, underwear all the time, like anyway, right? Isn't that what you guys are doing?
That's the good side of the pandemic, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. I just dress from the waist up.
That's
like
it.
I've been doing that for months
like
now.
TV show people or something.
Totally, like a news anchor. Anyway, so Bob just looks fantastic. For everybody that wants to know, I will link to the YouTube page because also you are giving really very intricate insights into how to repair your mini. It's a whole workshop basically. So this is what happens when the windshield wipers break. This is what you do. This is where you put it in. I mean, your whole background in mechanical engineering really comes out, and it's just fantastic because you have so much patience. Your passion really shines through, and you just really take them into the workshop, and you see this is how you do it. This is what you have to watch out for. Like have a magnet, for instance, under all the different parts so that you don't lose all the washers and so on and so on. It's really amazing.
That magnet thingy, you need it on a mini because the mini has this very weird karma, like hovering over it. That, say for example, you drop a washer, right? Out of all the washers you got out, you only drop the one that's the most crucial for you to put everything back together. And the bloody thing will fall into some sort of a mythical, almost crevice that nobody knows except for, I don't know, whatever, in the engine bay. And it will only reappear 15 years later when you don't need it. Like the moment you actually are trying to find it, it will never show up. So yes, a magnet comes in handy, but the reason why I'm going through the process is like, okay, you decide to go on a trip. It's kind of like, what am I going to pack in my backpack, for example, right? What am I going to prepare? Do I need shots like vaccines, whatever? Where am I going? And on a road trip, And especially because this is not going to be a road trip where I'll be, okay, I'm a YouTuber, here I am driving, da-da-da-da. This is the experience, this is the country. And I have 3 vans behind of me. One of them is for parts, one of them is full of engineers, and another one has a spare car in case the one I'm driving fails. And, that's not the case. It's me, myself, and I, and Bob, and only the parts that I can carry with me. And, regardless of how many kavadzas Bob may have, how much stuff are you going to take with you? Because you need your stuff. I need my drone. I need my cameras. I need my everything, right?
And there's only so much you can take in a Mini, right? I mean, it's a Mini.
You can actually take a lot in a Mini. But what's really important in setting out on a road trip is that you really, really need to know your car inside and out. So the moment, for example, I've reached the point where I can recognize from where a noise comes from and what the problem is just by the sound of it, right? And that really comes handy on a road trip because you got to know what to fix, when, and how. You need to know what tools to have with you. You need to know what spares to have with you. But most importantly, the reason why I'm going through all the stages now with the car is that I got to check it inside out and make sure everything tallies to what I think the car can do, right? Hence, that's why I'm taking.
So, what does this car has to do exactly? I mean, I don't. What does it really have to do?
Well,
what are you planning for it?
Well, I'm planning on a trip that involves around 16 countries, about 13,000 kilometers. I have no idea how long it's going to take me to. Probably around 5 months. I reckon 5 to 6 months. And I'm going to drive him through every single country I haven't visited in Europe, plus the few that I have visited, but I got some good friends over. And I'm going to run a trip and try and experience that trip, not as a tourist. Again, I want to see, I don't want to hit a country, tick a box, hey, I've done Bulgaria, move on to the next one. I actually want to drive it. I want to stop over. I want to meet people. I want to be hosted by people. I want to spend time with them. I want to see what they're like, what their lives are like, what their culture's like. What goes on in, even in countries that, are less traveled, like Moldavia, for example. What is it like in Latvia? What is it like in Estonia? And I just want to meet my Europe. I mean, I'm part of it and I've never traveled it. So the plan is to drive through it and experience whatever a travel or a trip has to offer along the way. I'll just be doing it in a classic Mini. And I have no idea what's to come my way, basically. It's what kept me on my feet during the second lockdown, to be quite honest with you. It's my New Year's resolution because I had hit such a huge low because last year brought me to bankruptcy twice, right? So you try and you fail, and you try and you fail, and you try and you fail. I mean, regardless of how many,
and you fail hard, and you fail better,
hard, right? And regardless of how many reserves you have, at some point you do get tired, and you're like, okay, this is not going to work. Blah, blah. And then you just wake up one morning and you make a very simple thought: what do I like? Photography, traveling, Mini. Then you go for a walk, and you're like, what do I like? Photography, traveling, Mini. And you're like, why not combine them?
Repeat after me. Photography, traveling, Mini.
And by combining them came the project of the Mini Diaries. And that's exactly what it's going to be. Travel diaries of my experience of roaming around Europe with Bob, basically. With whatever that might entail along the way. To be quite honest.
Already there's an amazing amount. There's, I think you did 8 or 9 videos now on the YouTube channel for Mini Diaries.
I've 7 already, and I'm working on the next.
Yes. So you basically you hit the ground running, right? When you depart. So it's like there's already an amazing build up and insight actually also into your relationship with Fonzie. My God, look at that!
I know.
Look at that! It's like I so relate to the story that I just swapped names out there. I mean, really. So with Bob, Sorry. But by the way, fun fact for people that don't speak Greek, Bob is the one name in the Greek language where when you spell it on the Greek alphabet, the amount of letters is almost doubled. I love that.
That is because he saw one Bob SpongeBob poster somewhere.
Yeah,
and ever
I love
since
that
stuck
though.
with how
No,
we
I
like
just
Bob.
love it. I just love it. I'm sorry. I just love it. Anyway,
all
that's
right.
besides the point.
So, where exactly are you going? I mean, you have kind of like an idea. You want to just free roam. You start.
It will be a
What
combination
inspired
of
your
both.
route?
Sorry, what?
No, what inspired your route? Exactly. Yeah, what Vicky said.
Yes. What does your route look
How
like?
did you plan it?
Well, the idea for the route, actually the idea for the trip came one night when I was just listening to music and I was trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life. And that's exactly what my third episode, The Great Escape on YouTube is all about. I was inspired by radio, actually. So I have
I love that scene. By the way, I just love that scene. It's just so good. I love that scene when you show that radio and you turn that knob and it just goes throughout like the world. It's like a world receiver, a European receiver, right?
But it is,
and that needle goes and travels.
It's a German radio. It's a 1958 Blaupunkt Sultan, which I restored and it works lovely. And back then,
beautiful.
Because you had long waves, medium waves, and short waves, not only FM. So you had 4 bands on the radios. On long, medium, and short, you didn't tune into a frequency. You said, okay, I want to listen to Luxembourg right now. So you turn the knob and and the slider would just move to the city you wanted to tune in. And there you go. You were tuned into Luxembourg. So in times when I was so bored of everything, I would just press the button and it only works at night when the sun doesn't interrupt the radio frequencies. You can listen to long wave frequencies on that radio.
Very nice.
Yeah. During the day, there's nothing. But when the Earth turns over and it doesn't see the sun anymore, the radio waves are free to travel your way. They're not like mingled up with solar.
I didn't know
noise.
that. That's so interesting.
See, you learned something.
I learn something every day. Don't worry.
I know,
so many things every day. Actually.
So I was just sitting there playing with my radio, trying to tune into different countries and see, what's the story over there. I was just sitting there like almost like lobotomized. And I'm like, it was like an epiphany. God damn, I can actually, because I was thinking, what would it be like in Frankfurt or in Milan or in Riga, because it actually has names of capitals of countries. And I'm like, that would be a great trip. And then I was, as the radio antenna was sliding over the dashboard, I'm like, why not do it? Like, just plan it and go. Just take Bob and go.
Like
Fucking go. Just go. Yes. And then I got excited. Then I didn't sleep that night. Then I got up the next morning and shot the first episode. And then, you have, I got myself a YouTube channel and a plan. And actually it's evolving into something I can't stop working on, to be quite honest with you. I just can't. Because I can't.
Amazing. And you shouldn't stop. Just carry on. Just
you know what I realized? My biggest problem over the last 3.5 years was that I actually made a mistake. And that mistake was to try and grow roots in Greece. And that was wrong. That was very wrong.
What's wrong with roots?
Yeah, what's wrong with roots?
Well, if I was to be described by an element, I'm not earth. I'm either wind or I'm either water, but I need to be on the move. I should have actually tried to make just a base. Like that was my initial plan, make a base, but I ended up growing roots here. It's very
that's different
it's
because
different.
of the pandemic.
Yeah,
it's
but
different because
still.
also as you say, okay, I am air or I am wind or I am water, but still these elements have a connection with.
Yeah, but Vicky, you know what? I
elements
can't. Traveling has become such an inherent part of my life. It's such an important part of my life. It's kind of like my fuel for life. Like all the excitement and the experience and the knowledge and the adventure and everything that is tied to an actual trip, I can't live without. It's like, for example, had I been, I don't know, an adventure photographer or working for, I don't know what, like National Geographic or even a war correspondent, I would love that. I would be on the move. I would feel alive. Like, okay, people would shoot over my head and throw bombs and stuff, but Damn, that would be fun. I'm not a 9-to-5 guy. I'm not a go-to office guy. I can't. I gotta be on the move, and I haven't moved at all. So, ask the question.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I still think like that a lot. And I often ask myself a question I would like to share with you. Isn't this part of our future to-do list of fears, letting go of our relationship with travel? Would that be in there?
In my case, no, I don't think so, Vicky. At least not now. The version of me today, right now.
What if that was not in the bad way, but not in order to? I'm not saying not to travel. I'm saying not to be consciously in need of travel, but to do it independently, freely.
That is an excellent question.
Without needing it.
No, Vicky, that is an excellent question.
I'm not saying not to travel. I'm saying not to make our evolution dependent on travel, because there are circumstances like the corona, which are out of our control, just like so many other circumstances in our lives that can affect our dreams, the way we want to do things. Isn't it maybe an opportunity, or with everything that we've learned from our travels, to think how we can do without them so that we appreciate them in a different way?
I've actually thought of it.
Question.
What you say, yes, I have thought of it. And actually, I realized that I used to travel, and I paused for a while when I left Singapore. I didn't really travel because I realized that the reason I was traveling so heavily was that my travel was my escape route from the reality that I didn't like. Right?
Yes, and now it's different kind of travel, but you need that independence to happen. Yes.
That is very correct, Vicky. You hit the nail in the head again. So the reason why I used to travel...
She usually does that.
Yeah, I know. She usually does that, doesn't she? So the reason why I used to travel to the reasons why I want to travel now are totally different.
Absolutely.
But I still want to travel.
And that's part of... But that has not. We don't have to abandon the things we like.
Correct.
Yes.
But the difference being, so the growth that has come from all this experience is that I no longer need to travel to escape. I want to travel to discover. I want to travel to grow. I want to travel to experience. To become. Yes, to become. And you know what I realized? I also realized that traveling is not just to go visit other countries. I now, because of the corona, understood what I think it's Elitis. I'm not sure, another Greek poet who said that the best
Greek poet.
He said that the best journey are people. So I started taking different kind of trips and travels and journeys due to the corona through people. And that's a totally different experience altogether. So the mini diaries is going to be a combination of both. There will be a lot of people interactions along the way, a lot. It's not going to be, hey, here's the site. I mean, you can visit that as a tourist anyway, right? For example, like Casa Popolari in Bucharest. I don't think I will probably drive outside of it, but I don't think I'll make a stop. I would most easily make a stop in a farm with locals in a village somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Romania, where, I don't know, they do something special and spend time with them and try and understand their view and their version of life. That's what I'll be doing through the mini diaries. And let's see how that goes. I think
that's beautiful to explore. I think it will go great, because also, just like we are redefining so many things in our lives now with the corona, it's also maybe an opportunity to redefine how we see travel and how we see the experiences that we get while traveling, because it has a lot to do with how we view our world, with how we view other people from other countries, our opinions, all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's really like a huge, mosaic of elements, and that's why I'm really looking forward to this trip with Bob. As far as I've seen from some maps, like picking onto some videos and everything I've saw online, you are going all the way to North Cape, and then coming down from the fjords and the western part of Europe. So you are starting from the Balkan region and then heading up. Take us a little bit through the wider plan.
So the wider plan is Okay, so the plan is there's not really a concrete plan at the moment, but in which way? But in which way though? I have 3 different potential starting routes for my trip. So I will either enter Bulgaria and go all the way north, Romania, Moldavia, Ukraine, all the way up, hit Scandinavia, do a full run of Scandinavia, then come down. Or I will start going through North Macedonia, Serbia, whatever, all the way up. Or
you stop at Munich, you visit us here in Munich.
I will stop at Munich anyway, right? I will stop at Munich.
We might not be here anymore, but but if we are,
we will coordinate at some
We will coordinate, and I'm sure. And the other one would be to start through Italy, provided the international classic mini meeting does take place on the 4th of July this year. And it doesn't get cancelled, so there's going to be a lot of Bobs out there.
Exactly. Bob has to see some
No,
friends.
there's not a lot of Bobs. There's only one Bob. I'm sorry. There's only one Bob.
Cousins of Bob.
Yeah.
Okay, so cousins of Bob.
Bob's your uncle.
And that will be a great starting point if it actually happens. So if the IMM is on for 2021, I'm starting with Italy. I've spoken. Well, actually, Italy is going to be my first major stop. So if that actually happens, if IMM happens, I will drive to Belgrade, unite with the mini club Belgrade, then we'll drive through Croatia, pick up a few minis there, then we'll drive through Slovenia, pick up a few minis there, and then all together, we're going to enter Italy and go to Milan. Have fun there, do whatever we do, talk about minis the whole day and drink beer or martini for me, being boring.
Sorry, that sounds like a very promiscuous trip. Just saying, like, I'll pick up a couple of minis here, I'll pick up a couple of minis there.
There'll be minis coming in and out.
I mean, just like, okay, what is this? Like, anyway, no, but it sounds like fun. It sounds like a lot of fun.
I would love to film it with the drone constantly.
Oh, yeah,
in and out mini exchange.
Oh, totally. Nice. That would be very nice.
All right, and then where are you off from Italy then, George? You meet with all the minis in Milan. You have your mini catwalk there.
Yes, we'll have our mini
catwalk in Milan. Oh, very nice. That's a very good idea.
And, in Rome, do as the Romans. In Milan, do a catwalk. That's how it works.
Exactly.
Totally. So I think that's a great idea.
So from then on is when... So that's the only planned thing on the trip at the moment. Right? IMM, right? Mm-hmm. So from then on...
I think that's a fairly good trip planning, because how far can you plan these days? Really, and why
correct,
you?
Correct.
Right.
So there's a wish list, for example. So my wish list includes me exiting Italy through the Stelvio Pass, which is one of the best and I guess most difficult routes to drive in Europe, but it's extremely scenic.
Okay.
It's supposed to be a breathtaking drive. And from then on, I really don't know.
Go to Switzerland through that.
I will go through Switzerland. So I have friends in a few countries. I already have invitations to crash at Zurich, in Bucharest, in Paris, in Denmark as well. So I really don't know which direction the trip will take. What I can guarantee you is there will be no highways, no tolls, no major networks I'll be driving through. It will be as off the beaten track through Europe as it gets. Old countryside roads, whatever, through villages, through remote places, and try and record the experience of it all along the way. That's how it's going to work.
How can people follow? Can people follow your trip? Like, will you be posting along the way? Do you, not that you have to, bind yourself to it, but do you plan on maybe making some videos on Facebook or YouTube or something?
So the YouTube channel is there where I upload the episode, and I will be uploading a new episode every time I hit a new country. So I've already organized myself both with my gear and my setup and what software I'll be using and what have you. So I will be able to edit on the go, basically. So it's not going to be, I'm going to be I'm going to disappear for like 5 months, and then all of a sudden I'll come up with 15 episodes. It will be
20.
Yeah, it will be an episode per country as I move along. Because mind you, I won't really have a time limitation once I set out for the trip. Basically, I will spend as much time as I feel I want to, or I have to spend in a country to complete my, let's say, travel mission, and then move on. So yeah. So people can follow the mini diaries on YouTube if they want. And I don't know. I'll take
that sounds super exciting.
I really can't give you a concrete plan right now, because I will be making that plan along the way as the way dictates or evolves.
Perfect.
Basically. I'm not pre-deciding or predefining anything for that trip at all. Nothing. I'll just hit the road, literally.
All right.
I'll just be prepared with the car. That's all I want.
Be prepared to be unprepared, because you never know what's coming. So
correct.
He's not entirely unprepared either.
That's a nice thing.
If you watch the YouTube videos now, he's fixed Bob for good. I mean, Bob's really in a good state right now. I mean, those windscreen wipers, they're really working
All
well.
my money's on Bob.
That fan.
All my money's on Bob.
I mean, that fan is just a really great fan now. And especially how really, you should watch it. There's a lot of things to learn about minis as well. Do you have any hopes for the trip, actually? Anything you're like, I would like that, or you really just entirely free, and your mind is just a big void?
Hopes for it.
Void, maybe not.
It depends on how the whole project and the trip gets perceived by people. Like, if that becomes a source of revenue for me, that's going to be ideal, basically, right? Because the plan is I got to be on the move, and I got to find a way to combine and utilize travel, photography, and videography along the way. I mean, I can talk, I can tell a story, I can shoot, and I can film, and I can edit, and I can travel. And I really don't know where that's going to take me. I mean, I have a wish at the moment, but I'm not going to limit whatever opportunities are going to appear along the way to that wish that I have now. Right? So I'll be taking Bob through with a totally open mind. And que sera, sera, really.
All right.
Wonderful. That sounds like
wait. That really leads me with rubbing my hands.
Yes, it's like, ooh, I can't wait to see this. Obviously, in order to see this, you got to tune into the video. Anyway, of Vicky rubbing her hands. There's something that I would like to know from you. Somebody that has traveled a lot and seen a lot of parts of the world, and I think really has an understanding of a shared essence of human beings. Also going back to what you said about Africa, how it grounded you, how your visits have just put things in perspective for you as well. Mm-hmm. From my perspective, I have this feeling that, and this pandemic is a perfect example of that we are a global community. We are like this pandemic has illustrated that to us in a very strong way, that this outbreak is something that we all share. We share in our own ways, in our own realities, our own localities, whatsoever. But we share it, right? And this is something that is just making it very clear that we have a shared fate, a shared responsibility for each other in a way as well. And I think it hasn't been stronger than now. This was quite clear maybe before the time, but this pandemic is making it clearer than anything ever before. And what I'm thinking, and what I find myself thinking a lot lately, is there's the reality of that. And at the same time, we haven't developed a narrative yet to sustain this idea of a global community. We still see everything as, very localized or nationalistic as well, a lot of the things. And to my understanding, at least, I believe to solve a lot of the problems that we face in the world, we have to also come to an understanding as a community that depends on each other. Now, how do you think we could create a narrative like that? How do you think we could reach out to each other and have a narrative that sustains that a little bit and supports that idea? Is it through individual projects? Is it through art and culture? Is it? Have you thought about this in a way as well? Does this make any sense to you? What I'm saying?
It does make a lot of sense, and there are so many. I'm not really sure if narrative is the word I would use, for example, but
a common myth, if you will, as well, or
the way I see it is that there are so many means available to our disposal at the moment, right now, as we talk, that could actually bring us together as from separate, independent communities to a more, let's say, unified community. I just feel we're not using them. It's like what I mentioned earlier on, that there's so many things to bring us together, and we keep on focusing on things that should actually set us apart, in a sense.
That's no coincidence, though. This is the way of thinking that is being promoted on a political level, on a social level. So, of course,
that brings us to fears again as well.
Yes, it brings you back to fears. It takes you away from this communal experience, the shared experience, what you are describing now. What George is going after with his new trip is this shared experience. What you are describing as coming together as a community is a shared experience, and that is exactly what should not happen, because it questions the way the society is working today, and of course there are conflicts there. So that's why I think it's a beautiful conversation that we are having, because amid this quarantine, there is a beautiful person somewhere planning on a trip to have this shared experience with the world. And I think that's a very beautiful thing to know that's happening, and to dedicate a podcast to, and to dedicate a trip to, and a conversation to, and so many things.
Correct. One thing I realized, and I did not, actually there was such a feedback on an idea ahead at the beginning, and people's reaction, I haven't shared that idea yet with anyone on the channel. It was just something that I thought that might work, is people started asking what I thought, and that was, how can they join the trip? I haven't even started. I haven't even left, right? How can they join? And I'm like, ooh, actually, okay, let's work on that. So I am already working on how people can join the trip. Because what I realized was that people understand that they need either a change or something to brighten up their lives, or something to help them think or sort things out. And they have two major, let's say, blocks on their way. First of all, they're afraid to say it or ask. And the second one is they don't know how. They just don't know how to do it, right? And this is where a travel buddy will come in handy, I think. And that's the plan, or that's one of the things that will be happening with the mini diaries, right? There will be, let's say, because I actually had people saying, hey, George, there's this random guy. He's super cool, really awesome guy from the States. He saw one of the episodes, texted me, and we've been talking. And he's one of the nicest guys ever, right? Complete stranger up till a few weeks ago. And he's like, George, how can I join? And I'm like, bro, you just got to be patient a little while, and I'll tell you exactly how it's going to happen. But this guy seems determined. He actually wants to fly over and join the trip for a leg.
That would be really nice. That would be really nice.
For a leg of the trip, right? So just giving you a teaser, there's a reason why there's no passenger seat all this time in my car. It's missing. If you've noticed, there's no passenger seat. There's a reason for it.
I have. And you know what? I thought when I thought, okay, I mean, because I know you, I know you're a tall person, all right? Okay, not like super tall, but you're a tall person. Also compared to me, you are tall. So I'm like, okay, now he doesn't have a seat because he wants to lay his foot on the other, his big leg on the other side, and stretch and all of that. Uh-huh. But now I see there is another meaning to it, and I really like what I'm hearing. Absolutely.
Yeah. There is another meaning to it. Actually, it was the absence of the seat that actually brought the idea forward. And
the idea.
Yes, that's how I got the idea. I'm like, yeah, that would work. Why not? And then
be careful now. People are listening. There is an empty seat on Bob. In Bob.
Yeah, correct. There will be
with George.
There are going to be terms and conditions for that, but I think it's going to be great.
Of course.
Because already from the conversations I'm having online with quite a few people, actually, it's that they're desperate to just disconnect and talk and do it in an environment that's pleasant. And that environment is not necessarily a physical environment, it's an experience that creates the environment that people want to find themselves in. And that's what I'm working towards with it. And I think it's going to be great fun, actually. I think it's going to be great fun because the challenge with a road trip is, okay, I've been a solo traveler all this time, all these years. Being a solo car traveler, for example, you can't just randomly turn around and talk to whom? The mirror, for example, or my gear shift. It doesn't work this way. You do need company along the way. For example, if you catch a train, if you get bored after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours, you turn around and start socializing with people. When you're in a car driving by yourself, it's not the same. So I think that's going to be more than handy, actually. And there's a lot of things to like. It's going to be like a cultural exchange on the road, so to speak. And I think that's going to be cool, really cool, actually.
I'm sure you will. I'm really hoping that you will also take some photos because
he will definitely take photos.
Well, let me tell you, it's
people.
My hands are gonna be full. Like my plate's full because I gotta be able to take photos and shoot raw footage and edit while on the road. Which means that, say for example, if you want to cover a distance of 50 kilometers, you need how much? Let's say an hour. It's gonna take me 3 or 4. So I figured that there's absolutely no way I can cover anything more than 150 kilometers on a good day, right? Absolutely no way. And I've set that one as a top limit for me moving about.
I would absolutely agree with you. You know what? Setting up a kilometers, let's say, milestone is a bit of a trap. On the one hand, if your time is limited, it will work. Last time, because I did once a road trip around Europe, and what I would not do again is do this. Plan this 200 kilometers a day, 100 kilometers a day, and all of that. It really takes you away from the actual goal of the trip.
Yes,
and
absolutely,
if you don't really have to do it, why do it? I mean, if you do have the time to spend, it also gets you. I mean, this should be an experience not stressful. Like you have these 20 kilometers or 30 kilometers until the next village, that's fine. But to really have to do a kilometer count every day for me. Okay, when I did this trip, it was a little bit tight. I had to get back at some point to work, but still, you are at North Cape facing in the Arctic Ocean and you are seeing a never-ending sunset. You cannot think that you have to cover 250 kilometers.
No,
it is
I
stupid,
agree with you.
You know,
and I will run, right?
Exactly.
The only reason I've set the limit is that I need an overall, let's say, guideline. Say, for example, there's limits to how much I'll drive. I'll drive per day. There's a limit to how high I will rev the engine, right? So my limit, for example, is 4,000 RPM and for specific periods of time. There's an absolute no drive at night policy through the trip. Absolutely no way. Unless it's a matter of life or death, I will not be driving at night. But you need to have some sort of limitations, right? On traveling.
Yes, all good with that, but not to make it your,
No, I understand. Not to become lost in your
lost in counting and
yes.
all of that.
To me, the question about you're drinking my drink, fine. About the narrative of the community, I think is one that's really been on my mind for a lot of the last few days. What I wanted to ask you is, in this whole lockdown, now lockdown 2, right? I mean, who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting?
Yeah, correct. Who's counting?
Who's counting, really? Do you have any inspirational story that you came across or that you also experienced, saw, where people really overcame the boundaries of the quarantine, of the lockdown, and reached out to one another, built bridges, anything like that? If you think of the past year, what inspirational story that's connected to the pandemic has influenced you?
What has influenced me? I'll share a story from Easter last year. It was the first time ever, I think, that Greeks were locked up and were not allowed to celebrate Easter.
Easter is a very big thing in Greece, right? It's one of the biggest holidays.
Not one of the biggest. It's the biggest religious holiday in Greece is Easter. Not Christmas, Easter. So it was when the government announced that, guys, you can't go to church, you stay home, and that's it. End of story. I'll never forget Easter night, Saturday night. So when the bells struck midnight and it was, it's the religious resurrection of Christ and it's the beginning of the new life and all that kind of stuff. People were on their balconies, and I know my neighborhood. Nobody talks to anyone. Or let me rephrase that. Nobody ever spoke with anyone. And one balcony it's next to another and another and another. And those people, the only time they would actually interact, 9 out of 10 of the cases, would be to swear at each other or pick a fight or move your pot from here to there, or your dog is barking too much and I can't sleep, and
move your pot.
Yeah, and but it's real.
We can relate.
It's Greek drama. Why are your flowers extending into my balcony? All that kind of crap, right? That night,
been there, done that.
Well, what really amazed me was that all of a sudden that night, people were flocking the balconies in the middle of the night, everyone holding candles in their hands.
Candles, yes.
Yeah, lit candles. Yeah. And not only were they wishing one another Happy Easter, they would wish Happy Easter to the buildings across the street. So, and the thing, and usually, you say the wishes and, okay, let's go in and eat, is what used to be the story before the pandemic. This time around, people spent 15, maybe 20 minutes out on their balconies, holding lit candles, talking to one another and exchanging wishes. And I was like, you know what? After all, there are some good things about this whole lockdown story. It actually brought people whom you never thought would spend 1 second to talk to their neighbor, spend 20 minutes out in the cold at night, holding a lit candle and doing the best they can to make one another feel nice and supportive of what everyone was going through. So it was kind of like people uniting against a common enemy, if I'm allowed to use those words. But that actually struck me as a very, very intense and profound experience during the pandemic time, to be quite honest with you. If there's one thing I remember, was that one.
I think it's also all about what the spirit of this holiday is all about. I mean, it is about resurrection. And I think really also because I remember this is Easter very intensely, I think that was the real firework, what you just described, this connection between neighbors,
yes, it was.
People in an immediate environment. Yes, that was the real firework. I remember also I went up the rooftop to watch the fireworks and everything afterwards, and to sing, and the sound of Easter was very different this year. Also because you heard all these balcony talks. I also live in a very crowded neighborhood. So all this idea of the balcony, I can totally relate to that. Yeah. And how each home opened up to the neighbor, which was, yes, otherwise limited to you snore too much or move your pot. Yes. I think so too. Yes, totally. And your dog, there's something wrong with your dog. I mean, they're just barking all the time and all of that. And for some moments it was like that. I absolutely can relate to that.
And looking at this now, and what you were just describing, I think is then a great transition also to the next question, actually. What opportunities do you see in the pandemic? If you think of what is going on right now, what do you think we can take from this? What do you think we can...
Or leave behind.
Leave behind, exactly. How this could this potentially? I know it's up to us, right? How could this potentially help us, maybe to also transform things?
There's always good to be found out of any perceivably bad situation. Always, there's always something to be learned. Yeah.
Yes,
there's always something to be learned out of it. I wouldn't speak in general terms, but I would speak for myself. I have learned to appreciate. Let me put it the other way. I will never, ever, ever in my life, once this thing is over or it normalizes out, I will never, ever say, it's okay, I can do it tomorrow. Fuck that. I'll do it now. What tomorrow? You never know what tomorrow brings anymore. Like, seriously. We all thought we had the luxury of, nah, it's okay, I can do it next year, or I'll do it next month. You can't now. Like, imagine, you can't. There's so many things that you can't do that we left for tomorrow, and yesterday's tomorrow is today, and we're stuck. That's definitely a learning that I'm taking from this pandemic story. It's definitely historic times, the ones we're living through right now. And this is definitely a huge opportunity to drive change, because the pandemic actually forced every single society to bring its dirty laundry on the surface. And there's a lot of it. So
that's a nice way to put it.
But it is. I'm not going to use any other terminology for it. It's our dirty laundry has surfaced because of the pandemic.
Yes.
Right? We were capable and prepared with a lot of things, and we were completely lost in space with so many other things, for example, right? So there's the pandemic is an opportunity. It's just like war. There's so many things that begin and start after a war ends, for example, through the utter destruction. Like, look at our technology, for example. Like, the boom of it was the last big war of humanity. That brought us to the moon, for example.
Yes, of course.
It was a war.
And so many other things. It brings us also together now. We are...
Correct.
Yes,
correct,
of course.
Correct. So,
of course.
And we can actually...
But it's...
Mm-hmm. It is? Yeah, go on.
Yes.
No, ladies first.
I think it's another pandemic. The pandemic of postponement is another one that is...
it's kind of like the same... What do you mean? The pandemic of postponement?
Postponement. This idea that we have, that we will live forever, we can do it another day, we can postpone it for tomorrow, we can cancel.
No, yeah, you're right. This is a pandemic. Definitely. It's like
yes.
What I said before. Don't leave stuff for tomorrow. You don't.
Yes,
I
exactly.
Can do it later. You can't do it later. Do it now.
It's something I think we all can relate to, because we do it. Others do it more, others do it less, whatever, differently. But there is this postponement, and it is because we believe that yes, it's going to be here. We take things for granted. That's why we postpone.
Yeah.
And I think this is what the pandemic came also to tell us, that okay, I'm not trying to idealize it, but it did give you a sense of finite, that something sometimes end. You cannot move as you used to. You cannot express yourself as you used to. You cannot work like you used to. And on the one hand, that makes you inventive. And on the other hand, it maybe makes you question what was really the reality I was living in all this time.
That's true.
Yes, true. Of course. And what do I want next? And then you start thinking really nice stuff, like the mini diaries, for example, or whatever one comes up with. But the point is I think now we are in a shock, just like you say, it's a war situation, something like that. So what's the reaction? The reaction is that, first of all, we are in a bit of a shock. We don't really know this is happening. Is it happening? How is it happening? How is it, how does it feel while it's happening? and then we proceed into the actual, let's say, evolution of it. And that's,
Correct.
I think, the interesting part. What we are now going to do, because okay, there's been a lot of idealism. You know, you have a lot of time to think during the pandemic. Are
Yeah,
you
okay.
going to follow through? Are we going to follow through?
Thank you.
No judgment there, but the point is, you know, can we really make it a good lesson? Because then that's when some things in the pandemic come positive, to your question, when they become real and not just in the sphere of conversation or intellectualism or whatever that is. So I'm really looking forward to what's coming next, because I think that a lot of people have come to realizations, and that really fills my heart with joy, that there is consciousness, that there is this thinking about really principal things. And I'm really astonished. And how people find new ways of coming together through podcasts, through travels and midi diaries, through whatever have you. I mean, there is this burst of creativity, and I want to focus on that.
I think what you're saying now, and not that I'm answering my own question from earlier about the community, but I think I kind of am anyway, but you have already given a great answer, but I'm just adding on to that, is really what you just said is absolutely true. We have so many tools at our disposal now, more than ever. We can think about, digital or digitalism and all of this and whatever it comes with, whatever kind of flavors. The reality, though, is that we have so many ways of expressing ourselves, so many ways of connecting with each other. We know or a lot of us at least know the challenges that social media and all that brings with it, that not everything is just golden and shiny and great. But despite that, with a healthy amount of skepticism, or at least wariness as well, we still have great tools that are at our disposal to tell a story that will be received by somebody on the other side of the globe, and vice versa. I think this is extremely important, that it's not just going one way, but it's going the other way as well. That it's a two-way conversation. And I think we have never been more connected than that. And this is one of the opportunities. I do believe to some degree that through this pandemic, I see it a lot of the times, at least in my bubble, so to say, that there are people that are using those tools to reach out to one another. And I think that's already a very good starting point to form that narrative that I was referring to early on as well. To build it together, because it's not about someone building the one narrative for everybody. It will obviously be something that is a collective endeavor. It's a collective enterprise. Like, everybody is part of it. And we can only create a collective community or a global community if we're all part of the conversation. And at least we know now, after this pandemic, that the tools we need to do that, they're already in place and they're working. Maybe that, to me, is one of the things that I will take away from this conversation. And a lot more. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'll take a lot more things away from this conversation. But just regarding this one question that I asked you, this is what I'll take away from it. Yes.
Yes, let's see what happens. But the good thing is, whatever happens, is this what you said in the beginning, George. It's about acceptance, I think. It's about, okay, even if things don't really go exactly as we planned, and it's not such an ideal society after the pandemic, it's okay. We have to learn somehow to love that as well and get on.
And we have to adapt and evolve accordingly.
Yes.
And get on.
Yes. And get on with it, and also accept that, okay, maybe things might not go ideally, like they never were anyway, but to be more conscious about it and more open, and things will be okay. And I think the idea of community is super essential right now, because many of us are struggling to get by. I really hope that this will make us more honest with each other, in our relationships in society, just like we were on Easter. As you said, we were in our balcony sharing a common experience together. Let's make it more of a habit. That's my wish, to make it more of a habit. of having these kind of experiences together.
And that limitation can sometimes also be an opportunity in itself. Sometimes I feel that I have this feeling a lot of the times when I go and visit Netflix, and until you start watching a movie, an hour has passed because you're like, wow, I have so many choices.
Yes.
What is it going to be? I don't know. You go to the supermarket, instead of just getting a milk,
pizza,
you just
by the time you decide which movie you want to watch, half the pizza is gone.
Yeah, exactly. By the time the movie, you've decided on the movie, you're asleep, right? And by the time you've decided on what milk to buy in the supermarket, you're like, okay, maybe it's going to be yogurt.
Bio, almond, and this and that. It reminds me of a speech, one of this vulnerable. Okay, I don't really know how to pronounce that. And she was somewhere in Tibet or something. And she was saying, okay, there was this one shop with one brand of cookies. You just asked for cookies. You were out there in 3 seconds. That's it. There was no thinking about what cookies to buy. And now you're in this supermarket corridor with 100 brand of cookies with all different flavors. You spend 10 minutes looking at cookies. What is your brain occupied with?
Yes.
I mean, put it down in all its complexity and, different interpretations of it on a daily basis with all the variety of choices, the quality of choices you have to make. And then what is really your brain preoccupied with?
Yes. It takes it away from what you originally set it out to be.
What it's supposed to do, yes.
And I think, therefore, limitation in itself can be an opportunity in this time and age, and in this particular geographical location that we are in, that I am in at least, where I have everything aplenty. I think this limitation can also be an opportunity in itself.
Let's see.
Exactly.
Okay.
Let's see. So now this is my last question to you today, and then we will let you go into the night.
Cheers to the last question.
Cheers to that. Yeah, exactly.
Yamas.
Well, I like how you cheers. Yamas, φίλε μου, ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ.
Yamas, bitteschön.
My God, this is getting so interesting.
Prost.
I would like to know just, and this is really right at the end now.
Έχεις και τόσες ερωτήσεις εδώ, έχει γράψει ένα σωρό κείμενα, όλα αυτά. Δηλαδή, άμα δεις τι... You've done so much work there.
Yes, and as usual, it just, disappeared into thin air.
It didn't go as planned.
It didn't go as planned. It never does. It never does. But I would like to know from you, George, what music are you listening to right now? What is the song or the album where you're like, or playlist even, where you're like, wow, that's really getting me through the day?
Is there one? I don't know.
I actually have my own list that I use to take me through the day. It depends on the day. But it's African music, actually, what I'm listening to. And
all right. Any recommendations? Any specific recommendations?
Oof, I don't know. You can go for Azawade. It's an amazing song that it's so calming. Actually, music from Mali and the area around there, I find to be probably one of the best music you can find in Africa. One of the best by far. It's so calming.
Yes,
so
but they have great, a nice djembe and a lot. I used to dance to a lot of music.
There's so much stuff in Africa in terms of music. It's like all over the place. Zimbabwe has, South Africa has, Gambia has, Ghana has.
Yes.
It's like Morocco does.
Yes.
It's like, it's endless. It's an endless universe of music. Like, I don't think a lifetime is enough to discover all of what Africa has to offer in terms of music. But I have there's certain artists I go for, and I've made my own list on Spotify, and I just play them when I feel like I need a bit of a boost. I'll go for African music.
Do you like Sona Jobartek? Do you know her?
Sona Jobartek.
She's my new favorite. Okay.
I know.
Yes.
I've played Sona Jobartek so many times on my show, and I've actually been lucky enough to see Sona Jobartek performing live in Dornios.
This is one of my dreams.
I love her.
I really love her.
I don't just love her music. I love everything she stands for as a woman.
Yes, exactly. Of course.
She's a role model, basically, right? Because I think she's the first woman to play the gora, which has been which is like a traditional musical instrument in
and
Gambia.
Beautiful.
Yes.
We will put the link. We will put the link to the Sona Joe Bartes.
Of course we will.
You know which one. You're bored of listening to it, but yes.
No, I'm not. I love it.
He's heard this album.
I absolutely love it. It's just that sometimes Vicky just doesn't listen to anything else for months, but I still love it, though.
I still really love it.
She's amazing.
She broke the rules, and she said, because the gora is supposed to be an instrument only played by men, and it's the way to play it is passed on from one generation to the next. And she is the one who said, you know what, guys? No, I'm going to play it as well. And boy, does she play the gora. She is amazing.
Absolutely.
I'll never forget her. And her performance is mesmerizing. It's breathtaking. You can't even create a sound. You just sit there and you are like, wow, what am I listening to? What am I looking at right now? And she's like so calm and serene on stage. And her fingers are like on the gora, and the music she creates, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable, I tell you.
I really can't wait for a live of, and I actually wrote to her once on Facebook, said, please come to Greece and perform, I was one of those fans going, whatever, why not? You never know.
True.
That is come to Athens, exactly. There's a big audience for you here and all of that. It's my dream to see you, like the little fun.
It's a big audience, meaning at least I am going to be there.
Absolutely not. I think she will enchant people with her music.
Oh, she will. I think she has.
She will definitely. And another kind of music that I love from Africa, Pygmy music. If you haven't experienced music from the Pygmy tribes, I think your brain's gonna explode when you first listen to it. It's
wow.
It's an experience in itself. Music from the Pygmies, because they have this traditional way of a polyphonic music, so they don't really have instruments. The main instruments are vocals from different people coming together, all of them singing in different keys and notes. And what struck me as extremely interesting and fascinating about Pygmy music is that they make very basic instruments out of the natural elements they had around them. So, for example, instead of drums, they have a very specific way of clapping their hands on the water, on the surface of the water, on lakes and ponds. And they create a drumming sound that is it's like a signature sound of Pygmy music. And nice. When it all comes together, it's thrilling. And they have this other instrument that I don't remember what it's called, but it's like a U, and it has one chord only. And the guy is pulling it from one side with his hand, and they use a small stick to hit it back and forth. And I just paused for a moment because, it's a sound that I had never, ever heard before in my life. It was a new sound. Do you know the feeling of, discovering a new taste? For example, imagine a kid first time tasting chocolate.
For a new sound.
It's exactly the same with a new sound. You're like, oh my God, this is awesome. I don't want this to end. So that's how it goes with Pygmy music, actually. There's a lot of good stuff out there. A lot of good stuff.
I had the same experience in Ghana, not when we were there together on another trip, where I first heard gonze, which is they made it out of something like a turtle shell, and they use horsehair for strings. And it's something like a sitar, but they also use, how do you call this thing?
Sitar?
No, the...
Cello. No.
Like in the violin, you have something to play the chords with. How do you call this? Whatever.
Whatever it's called.
Yes.
Whatever, exactly. It's called the whatever.
Yes, to do that. And it was the first time where I heard this sound. And I was like, it really just ran through me. And then I actually ordered one of these instruments, and I have it ever since. Unfortunately, I cannot play this instrument, but I'm really hoping that somebody will come over my place at some point and play that gonje, because the feeling of the new sound is yes, it's not. I think it's more than just food.
It's called a violin bow, by the way.
It's a totally different experience. No, and it's unique. Absolutely. Yes, African music. It's just beautiful. If you have a link of a good sample of Pygmy music, maybe we could share it on the podcast.
Oh, that would,
yes, I will.
That would be really nice.
Yes.
That would be really nice.
I will send you right away.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if we're prepared. That's so spontaneous and sudden, but okay. We will accommodate it. No problem.
All right.
We will that would be fantastic, actually. Like, because I don't think I've ever listened to it. So that would be an absolutely new
I've seen
experience.
I wanted to go to Tanzania. There is a specific tribe there anyway, about a conservation project, but we'll make another podcast about it. But generally the Pygmy culture is super, super rich and beautiful, and there is some heavy marginalization there, but the diversity in their cultures and how they really intertwine with nature and their habitats, it's just mind-blowing. So yes, Pygmy culture, absolutely, and Pygmy music, we'd love to hear that.
There's a very interesting project if you want about Pygmy music. It's called Baka and Beyond. So Baka is a tribe.
Yes, it is the Baka tribe. Yes, that's exactly the tribe I want to go.
So look it up on Spotify. It's called Baka and Beyond. And there's this couple from the UK, I think. They're musicians or something. And they traveled and they lived with the Pygmies for a year, I think, recording their music. And they created albums available on Spotify that you can listen to them. And what they've done very successfully was bring together the traditional Pygmy sounds to, like, in a more modernized fashion, so to speak. Like the end result, guys, is awesome. It's absolutely awesome. So check it out.
It is exactly the tribe where I was looking at because I was very interested in how because now they're evicted from their territories and there is this anyway, all this situation going on. So I was mostly interested in it from a filmic point of view. But on the other hand, the music is the best way to get there sooner. So absolutely.
Oh, yes. I mean, I can just stretch. I have to stress one more time that when we were on your radio show, Off the Beaten Track, which I have to recommend highly,
music, by the way,
every Thursday night between. Tell me again, Central
Tuesday.
European time
is. It's every Tuesday, not Thursday. You guys go live on Thursday.
Did I say Thursday?
Yeah. You guys go live on Thursday. I go on Tuesday.
After I called Bob Fonzie already today. I mean, it shows how self-absorbed I am. Anyway, so every Tuesday, at 9 CET, Central European T.
I don't know. It's 10 p.m. to midnight GMT plus 2. Right? So I'm still an old.
Okay. So yes. GMT plus 2. I think that says it all.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm using the Greenwich Mean Time still. I'm a very old school guy when it comes to that kind of stuff.
I don't think it's just old school. I think it's also very practical because it is, in the end, it's Greenwich Mean Time. So that's how all that shit started, basically. So exactly. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. So it's like, you guys figure it out wherever you are in the world, GMT plus 2. Whatever.
And thank you.
So exactly. So you can listen to it there and you won't regret it. It's absolutely fantastic because we really enjoyed the trip that you took us on. It was amazing. Sometimes in between our conversation when you put on some music and also before when you paved the road, like you said, that was wonderful as well. The music you played was just absolutely beautiful. It's taking you on a trip. It is, you're traveling in your mind. It's the cultural diversity, the abundance of human creation, like I said in the beginning as well. You're putting it all there. And therefore, I cannot recommend it enough to go and listen to Off the Beaten Track on Nowhere Radio with you every Tuesday on GMT plus whatever, wherever you are. Exactly. Go check it out. And it's absolutely wonderful. So I think we've covered a lot of ground today. That was a very long ride in the Yellow Van story, in the Yellow Van, but in the best possible way, a very long trip with you. It was absolutely wonderful.
Was cool. Yes.
Yes.
It's a good thing we didn't. I've broken all
broke a record, my friend. You broke the Fonzie record for the moment. You are the Fonzie record holder.
Yes, absolutely.
Congratulations.
Absolutely. Not that, to be honest, I don't think that we're trying to break a record every day now, or every time we record.
But when it happens,
it happens, and we celebrate exactly. And in that sense, here's to that. Cheers. Uzo Martini. We're living it up. Right? We're totally living it up.
We're living the life. This is the life. YOLO and all of that.
This is the life. This is us working. This is us working really hard.
Yeah, so tough life, right?
Tough life. So tough. I mean, what can I say? You guys have been amazing. Thank you so much. Was that a bit too much? That me hitting my fist on the table? Do your thing. Okay, fine. Thank you. You guys have been absolutely wonderful. It was so much fun. So in closing, I would just like to say, everybody, please check out the mini diaries on YouTube. I will link to that. There is a lot more content to come. There's already a lot of content on there. Wonderful things to learn. If you are a mini lover, especially, I cannot recommend it highly enough, because you will learn a lot of things about how to fix your car. And so many more things. And yes, that's it. I think any last words from you guys?
I think I really like Bob.
Oh,
after watching the series and all of that, I've never met Bob. I have to say, I only know George. But now I know I have a lot to learn about George by only knowing Bob.
Don't meet Bob.
By knowing Bob only. So yes, no, absolutely, it's been a pleasure. It's he's one of the people who I really appreciate and feel very lucky for having in my life, and for having some common experiences with, and having this podcast together. It was really one of them. So
and you guys just reconnected, right?
Totally.
I mean, you hadn't been in touch for some time now.
Yes,
right?
Our style is a bit different. Yes, but I think we appreciate each other anytime. So
that's true.
Yes.
You know, for me, one of the things from my side is it was just wonderful to see that how you guys value each other. That was really absolutely wonderful as well for me.
Experience. It is all about all this Kenya thing, which is a dedicated podcast. And of course, what happened after that, because that was the beginning of a very beautiful connection. And then individual connections happened, and there was this whole mess around it, and beautiful life happening and all of that. So, but the beautiful thing is that, people go different roads. They lead, their own bubbles. We're all in our own bubbles. But when we have some moments to just mingle with other bubbles and get all our bubbles together in a nice bubble bath,
and we're bubbling up.
It's really nice. Exactly. So, yes.
You just put it so beautifully with the bubble bath. That was just, that was so poetic as well.
I couldn't have said it better myself, honestly.
Yes. I mean,
Thanks
really.
for understanding,
it's just
guys.
What do you do with all these bubbles?
They're flying all over my room now. Bubbles.
Yeah. What do you do with all the bubbles? You put them together in a bubble bath. That is one of the most creative approaches to the whole thing of being in your own bubble that I've ever heard. Thank you very much.
There you go.
So whenever you feel that you're trapped in your own bubble, just think of it as a bubble bath. Invite other bubbles in, and it's going to be to your own advantage, I believe. So much fun. Exactly. So, George, thank you so much. Anything you would like to say in closing this ride in the yellow van?
Well, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of things.
No pressure. No pressure.
No. Normally say, but there's one thing I really want to say is, despite the hardships of pandemic or no pandemic out there, it's really important to have dreams, not just one. A lot of them. It's the best fuel that keeps your flame, your inner flame alight through life. So, dreams, guys, a lot of them. Doesn't matter if you actually see them through all of them, but at least one you will see through. So it's cool to have them. That's how the mini diary started anyway. That's how a lot of things happened in my life. They all started from a dream. So dream up. That's it. I'm done. And I'm drunk as well.
Mic drop.
Too many martinis tonight.
So all of us here, and this is a tradition basically on the Yellow Van. Basically, at the end of the interview, you have to be drunk. Otherwise, it didn't really happen. But if there's one thing that I want to add to what you just said is that, have dreams. And if the one thing that I take away from our conversation today is that in order to have those dreams and to see them come to fruition, you sometimes have to face your own fears. And I think you are a perfect example of that.
And actually, you know what? Based on what you just said, I'm going to use a quote from someone who actually really did change my life for the best and made me realize that. And, he told me once that, you know what, George? I was very conflicted and confused and whatever and troubled back in Barcelona. He said, you got to do something with yourself. Because he said, in a heart full of fears, there's no room for dreams. And he was so right about that. He was absolutely right about it. And I try never to forget that. It's not tattooed anywhere yet, but it's a quote that I always keep with me wherever I go. Yeah, that's it.
That's a wonderful quote.
I'm done.
I think we're done.
That's a wonderful quote. Okay, fine. So that's it. Let's follow the mini diaries and so on. Thank you so much for having us. Well, no, it's the other way around. Thank you so much for coming with us in the Yellow Van today. George, it was an absolute pleasure.
And thank you for
having me. We will do it again sometime.
We should.
Oh, come on. Without you, the Yellow Van would have been empty. Totally empty.
I'm totally down for it, man. Just name the date.
Excellent.
It would be great after the mini diaries.
Yes.
If they are ever, maybe we meet you along the way. Maybe we meet you at the end of the ride. If you decide to have an end on that ride. So let's just leave it open. Mm-hmm. And but we are sure that Fonzie and Bob will meet at some point. And Absolutely. That will be our next podcast.
Absolutely. So latest we meet again when you have returned to Thessaloniki,
or not,
after or not. Maybe you maybe you decided to start a life somewhere else. This is definitely a possible outcome of this. We won't know, but until we know, we will have you as a guest again. Absolutely, anytime. And it was such a pleasure. George, take care. And all the best for your journey with Bob.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much. And thank you for your wishes and all the best for you guys as well. And give a big hug to Fonzie whenever you see Fonzie again. But hopefully we will bump each other on the road.
And this is the end of this week's trip in the Yellow Van. All information about George and his exciting upcoming trip with Bob will be provided in the show notes along with all other relevant links to today's conversation. Thank you all very much for coming along on the Yellow Van today. We hope you enjoyed your time on the road with us. We sure enjoyed our time with you. If you feel I missed some essential questions or follow-ups, like I'm sure I did, send them to us and we will have them answered for you. If you have your own inspiring story to tell or you know somebody who does, get in touch with us on yellowvanstories.com, where you can also leave us your general feedback or ideas for improvements. The hashtags for this show, learning on the job, and stronger together are no coincidence. If you want to support Fonzie with a bit of petrol money, you can do so on buymeacoffee.com/yellowvan, or you can leave us a review on our website or the podcast platform of your choice. This podcast is a Mind the Bump production. We hope to welcome you back next week for a brand new episode. We'll be keeping your seat and we'll be cooling that imaginary drink of your choice. Please note, a selection of teas and instant coffee is available as well. Some of you might just be starting your day, depending on what side of the planet you are on. Until then, stay healthy, keep loving, and always remember, we're all in this together. Now, take it away, Jim.
Took a very, very long time. But my message is clear. Keep living in the face of fear. Keep shouting that you to ride.